Hello everyone, I am Sleepy Shoreline, and I am here to help you today. I know you use this video to fall asleep, so before that, like the video and subscribe to the channel. Also, where are you from and what time are you watching? Now get comfortable and relax. I don't think I ever talked about this to anyone, as it is the most terrifying incident of my life. I was in middle school when my dad died in an accident. My mom and I shifted it to a new town. She took a job at the local school, and I got admitted there too. So, the new boy and the son of a teacher. You can probably imagine how my first day went. A big tall guy who was the bully pushed me, and I tripped over the dumpster. Someone's leftover smelly hot dog smacked me on the face. The mustard that came out of it looked like poop on my face. Anyways, I got home. I didn't say anything to my mom and went to bed. The next few days went by and I was still the lonely, unwanted kid in school. One day at recess, I was walking to the school cafeteria when I heard a familiar laugh. I followed it and stopped outside of the classroom. My mom was standing near a desk and talking to a man wearing a bow tie. Who the frack wears a bow tie? Yeah, well, we're just adjusting well. I think it's a little tough for Liam. Why? Is he alright? I don't know. He doesn't talk much. Well, I can talk to him if you want. And that's how Gerald came into our life. After 3 months of this conversation, Mom got married to him. He was the school accountant, and they both kind of fell in love and had their perfect marriage. Gerald was not a bad guy. I mean, at first. I just couldn't hate him. After they got married, Gerald moved into our house. He tried hard to impress me. He would make breakfast, take us out to dinner every Friday night, even bought me my favorite gaming console on my birthday. One day, I was taking books from my locker to attend the next class when I felt a strong slap at the back of my head. Turning back, I saw Monty standing behind me with his evil sidekicks. Look who's famous now. Monty, do I want any trouble? Leave me alone. For what? Your stepdad's gonna kick my ass. Let me go. You do know that your mom was screwing the school account, right? Everyone laughed as he made jokes about my family. I got really angry and shouted, "Keep my family out of this, okay?" Whoa, big talks all of a sudden. Saying this, he punched me in the face and gave me a black eye. I lied to my mom, saying I got elbowed in basketball practice. I planned to avoid Monty like a plague from the next day, but fate has something shocking planned. Upon reaching school, we were all informed about the untimely demise of Monty Clement. He was returning home from school and got brutally murdered by some psycho. His body was found floating at the big lake in the woods. His hands and legs were tied, and he was thrown into the lake. Not being able to swim, he drowned. As if the death wasn't painful enough, the killer pulled his nails and teeth out. His parents were devastated, and everyone was shocked. Cops started investigating this gruesome murder, and a night curfew took place in the town. No kid was supposed to wander alone in the streets after school. I was sitting on my room in a rainy Sunday afternoon when Gerald came in. "Hey, are you all right?" "I guess so." He sat beside me on the bed and said, "Were you and Monty close?" "No, not exactly." "I see. We used to have complaints about him being a bully at school. Did he ever hurt you?" I didn't want to say anything about to somebody who just died, so I lied. "No, never." "I see. Did the cops find who did this?" "Not yet." Gerald got up and started walking to the door. He suddenly stopped and turned around. His eyes were glowing wide. A sick smile appeared on his face. "You are safe now, Liam," and then laughed. A cold shiver ran down my spine. Why did he say that? From the next day on, I started keeping a close eye on Gerald. He had a habit of working in the basement till midnight. After having dinner that night, I remained awake in my bed, waiting for Gerald to go to sleep. As soon as the clock struck midnight, I heard the basement door close. Footsteps started to come upstairs and then stopped right outside my door. It was open and my room was quite dark. The dim light coming from the hallway created a shadowy atmosphere. I looked at the open door and saw Gerald standing outside. His eyes were scanning my room. He didn't notice that I was awake, and thank God for that. After watching me sleep for almost a minute straight, he slowly turned around and went to his bedroom. The moment I heard the bedroom door close, I slowly got up from my bed, carefully walked downstairs without making a single noise. The house was pin-drop silent, and only the sound of the grandfather clock was echoing in the void. I twisted the basement door. He never locked this door. This much I knew. Coming down, I turned on the light and found myself standing in a not-so-mysterious place. There was a wooden table and a chair. Piles of files and documents were on the desk. A worn-out couch and a small television were also in the basement. Nothing suspicious or alarming here, I thought to myself. Suddenly, my eyes went to the small mini-freezer where Gerald stored his beers. I don't know why I opened it, but as I did, the ground beneath my feet swept away. Along with the beer cans, there was a jar filled with pungent-smelling colorless liquid. And in that solution, handfuls of teeth and fingernails were floating. The ripped-out nails still had fleshy residue stuck to them. "Why are you up so late, Liam?" I turned back in fear and saw Gerald standing behind me. His face had a blank expression, and his eyes weren't blinking. He asked me again, "Why are you up so late, Liam?" I could feel my heart beating faster. I started to fumble. You killed Monty." "Why? Why did you?" "Because he hurt you. I'm your dad, and it's my job to protect you." I screamed. "Mom!" "Stop it, Liam. Stop shouting. You'll wake the neighbors." You're her mother." Gerald pressed his hand on my mouth and then kissed me on the forehead. His saliva tripped over my nose and then looked me in the eye and whispered, "Daddy's going to take care of you. Just let him, Liam." I couldn't make a sound. My voice died in my throat. I only cried. Just then I heard my mom's voice calling out, "Gerald? Liam? What are you guys doing down there?" Nothing, honey. Just having a chat." He let go of me, and I wiped my face with my sleeve. My mom came down and looked at us. "Did you scare him, Gerald?" No, honey. I was just explaining to Liam about the teeth and nails." "Oh my God, Liam, are you okay?" I looked down and saw that I had peed my pants in fear. My mom came close to me and kissed my cheek, saying, "You don't need to be afraid of him. He just wants to help out." "What? Help out with what?" "I saw Monty bullying you at school. He had it coming, trust me. It felt so good when we tied him up into the lake and pulled his teeth and nails out. We threw his body into the water and watched him drown in the lake. I'm not gonna let anyone hurt me. I guess that makes us a twisted family, but who cares? I still live with my parents. Me, my mom, and my dad, Gerald. We had pledged to protect each other for the rest of our lives. I know that they are twisted, but I can't leave them. They are all I have. And for Gerald, I've already lost a father who once cared. I can't lose him now. The remains of Monty are still in our basement freezer. Mom and Dad kept it as a memento. And to think, I also started to grow fond of their weirdness. After all, the fruit doesn't fall far from the tree. When it all started, I actually liked my stepdad, Ryan. He and my mom met at some work event, and I could tell right away that he was good for her. Mom hadn't really laughed or smiled much in the 18 months after Dad passed away. Ryan gave something back to her, some spark or light or presence. He made her happy, and that made me happy. So I was willing to overlook the weirdness when it first began. Ryan was a giant, at least 6'6" or more. I was always surprised his shoulders could even fit to the doorway. He had a dark beard and a booming laugh that he fired off often. But something felt strange from our first meeting. It was his eyes. I decided later. They were small for his face, nearly black. And over the course of the dinner that Mom made for the three of us, I don't remember seeing Ryan blink once. The first 6 months after my stepdad moved in with us were pretty great. He and my mom had a date at least once a week. Ryan even made time to hang out with me, which I respected. Not every new relationship is going to leave time for somebody to try to teach you how to drive or help you with calculus homework, but the guy made an effort. I was stressed enough getting ready to go into my senior year of high school. Knowing that my mom had somebody who made her happy after Dad died was a relief in a lot of ways. I noticed early on, though, that certain oddities seemed to hover around my stepfather. Strangers watched him from time to time. Anytime I was out in public with him, I saw people looking at us. I could tell it was more than a casual reaction to Ryan's size. It felt familiar, protective. Eyes followed us in restaurants and parks and stores. My mom seemed oblivious, but that's love for you, I guess. She and Ryan were dreamy-eyed for each other, and sometimes I felt like a third teenage wheel. But honestly, the first couple of months were good for all of us. Then Ryan moved in, and things got weird. My stepdad got a lot of letters and packages. He would wake up before the rest of us and go wait at the mailbox some mornings, but I still saw just how much correspondence came in. No matter the weather, even in the rain, Ryan would be waiting for the mailman. I tried once or twice to intercept the letters, but I never made it to the mailbox on time. Once Ryan had the boxes or envelopes, they disappeared to a shed that he custom built on our property. It stayed locked at all times, and he told my mom and me very clearly that it was his private space. In addition to all the mail, Ryan got a ton of calls at all hours. I'd step out of my bedroom in the middle of the night to use the bathroom and hear him whispering downstairs, having a conversation in the kitchen. Occasionally, I'd creep down the hallway, hoping to catch a few words, but my stepfather seemed to have an almost supernatural sense about eavesdropping. Once, I made it most of the way down the staircase before his voice suddenly stopped mid-sentence. I attempted to tiptoe back into my room, but when I reached the top of the stairs, I looked back to see Ryan staring up at me. His face was completely blank in the dim light, which was somehow worse than if he had been angry. I stopped trying to listen in on his late-night calls after that. If it was just the letters and the phone calls, I could have let a sleeping dog lie. Even a year in, my mom was still over the moon, head over heels, madly in love with this strange giant man. But then, the long disappearances began. Ryan told us that these were business trips, though he was always cagey about exactly what he did for a living. Something about property management, he told us. The man did well, financially. There was no doubt there. Within that first year, he was paying all of the household bills, taking my mom on fancy vacations, and even putting some money aside for my college fund. Ryan never went into details about his job, and his trips started lasting longer and longer. First, it was a few days here and there, then weeks, escalating until he disappeared for nearly a month at the start of my senior year of high school. My mom nailed a smile to her face, but I could tell she was devastated and afraid. I decided to confront Ryan when he finally returned late one night. Mom was already asleep and didn't wake up when he pulled into the garage. I waited half an hour for him to get settled, then walked downstairs. Ryan was sitting at the kitchen table eating leftovers when I sat down. "Hey kiddo," he said, smiling. The smile dissolved when I asked him where he'd been, and then told him I didn't think it was right that he was treating my mom that way, keeping her in the dark. "Go to bed," Ryan said, his face cold and flat again. It felt like the temperature in the room dropped. To my shame, I scurried away, unable to keep eye contact with those dark, dead eyes of his. But a resolution formed in my mind that night, a promise to myself. I'd at least check the shed to see what my stepdad was storing. I ordered a lock-picking kit. Can you believe you can just buy that from Amazon? Then, I waited an agonizing week for Ryan and my mom to head out for the day. There were 3 padlocks on the door. I got through them all in under 2 minutes. It was a big shed, but cramped. I pushed the door open and saw only shadows from the sunlight behind me. I fumbled around on the wall for a light switch, not even sure if the shed was wired for electricity. Apparently, it was. I flipped the switch and took a step back. The shed was packed with bones. There were boxes full of ribs and femurs, collarbones, spines dangled from the rafters, and a full human skeleton was stapled to the back wall. I saw knives, big blades that curved back and forth with the snake's tail. A pair of black robes hung on a mannequin in the corner. I was so stunned by the contents of the shed, I barely registered the blinking red light over the door. Until I thought about it later. It was an alarm system. I was sitting at the kitchen table trying to decide my next move when Ryan's car pulled into the garage. The obvious thing to do was to call the police, but I was terrified that my mom somehow might get in trouble as well. I re-locked the shed and figured I had time to talk to her, to warn her about Ryan. Then we could choose what to do together. We'd been safe with him for more than a year or so. What was another day? By the time Ryan pulled his car into the garage door, my mom was already dead. I went out into the garage to meet them and saw her dead, wide-eyed corpse sitting in the passenger seat. Ryan was watching me with a blank face, his shirt stained with my mom's blood, a curvy knife in his hand. I realized he knew I broke into the shed. I wanted to scream, weep for my mom. But when he opened the car door, my legs took over and ran into the house. Ryan had its secrets, and so did I. So did my mom. I knew that she had a small gun stashed away deep in the back of her closet. She'd bought it after Dad died and before she met Ryan. I heard him crashing through the house behind me, calling my name. I made it to the gun just as he ran through the bedroom door. I fired until the clip was empty, and Ryan was sliding down the hallway wall, 6 bullets in his stomach and chest. The police arrived quickly. After searching the shed, I found out the truth. Ryan wasn't just a killer. He had a hidden life. Several lives, actually. Several families. Some knew his secrets. Others, like Mom, were meant for sacrifice. Ryan had his own little cult, complete with followers. They were the ones calling him late at night and sending him those packages full of bones. Trophies for his collection. My friend Muriel and I used to go dumpster diving when we were about 12 years old. We lived in the countryside and loved roaming around the town riding our bikes. There was this old abandoned factory in our town in front of which people used to dump their garbage for the cleaning van to take away every Sunday. So, the best time to dumpster dive was Saturday night, as we could have a lot of stuff to look through for hidden treasures. The reason we called our findings hidden treasures is because sometimes we did find some pretty expensive stuff that people just threw away due to a little dysfunction. One time, Muriel found this set of silver forks, which were covered in rust and broken at the tip. We earned good money selling them in a pawn shop. So, it was a Saturday night fun activity that not only gave adventure, but also thrills. The dumpster was located in a sketchy place where no one would go after sundown. The abandoned factory was infamous around the town for all kinds of criminal activities. But we never went inside the factory, just kept our business to the dumpsters. Until one night, our world turned upside down. I was standing on the sidewalks opposite Muriel's house and waiting for him to sneak out so we could go on our routine expedition. After 5 minutes, he came out and we began riding to our destination. It was a full moon night, so even if our cycles had headlights, the view was still clear as crystal. The silver moonlight helped us navigate our way. We passed the cornfields, then the shimmering lake, and finally reached the abandoned factory. We parked our bikes under a big tree and walked to the dumpster, grabbing our flashlight and pickup sticks. The dumpster had a reeking smell, so we didn't want to use our hands directly to grab something. Like I said, we have done this many times, but particularly that night, something felt off about that entire place. Generally, we would hear sounds of crickets and frogs, but that night, we heard nothing. Isn't it too quiet tonight? Yeah, I said, while scanning the spooky surroundings. Suddenly, a coyote howled in the woods and Muriel said, let's get this done with and go home. Getting a weird vibe about this place tonight. Muriel was braver than me in most cases, but as soon as he said that, I felt the hair at the back of my neck stand up. We poked and ransacked the dumpster with our sticks. After a pile of household waste and rotten food, I saw a red hairy thing peeking out under a black layer of a garbage bag. Hey, Muriel, what do you think that is? I don't know. We looked at each other and I moved the layer of plastic to see it more clearly. As soon as I did that, I backed away screaming in fear. Oh, holy moly. Is that? The reason Muriel stuttered in fear was in front of our eyes. A partial head with curled red hair was now peeking from the pile in that dumpster. We were about to pee ourselves as we realized we might have discovered the body of a woman. Should we call the police? But who would believe us that we had nothing to do with this murder? While Muriel and I went on discussing what should be done in this situation, my eyes went back to my head, and I saw it move. I froze in fear. No words came out of my mind. I just kept staring at that head in the dumpster. Russell, what is it? Muriel called out to me and I pointed at the head with my shaking hands. Both of our eyes got fixated on the head and we were pinned to the ground by an unknown fear. The head moved in a very creepy way, bobbled up and down a little for a few seconds, and then all of a sudden, a woman rose from the dumpster. She looked like a being from another world. Her red, stringy hair floated in the air like a pile of snakes. Her long, pointy nose with a huge black blitz on its top dangled on her face, and her eyes, I'd never seen such wide, scary eyes. Her eyes almost stretched to the cheekbones, making her stare cold as a dead fish. She slowly crawled out of that pile of the dumpster like a four-legged animal, and we slowly took our steps back in fear. I didn't know you boys had come to visit me. She looked like a woman, but her voice was of a possessed demon. Our bikes were still far from our reach, and I knew if we tried to run, she had a very good chance to catch one of us and do unthinkable things. So I tried to play it cool. We were only fooling around. Were you? Yeah. In fact, we were just about to leave. You know, our parents must be worried, so... I don't think your parents know you are here. Look, we're sorry to disturb you, dumpster lady. It won't happen again, okay? Dumpster lady. That's not bad. But what won't happen again? This, we'll never come back here. We promise. Yeah, we promise. Who said you'd be able to leave and come back again? Saying this, she jumped on Muriel and started choking him. Her filthy long nails dug into Muriel's flesh and he screamed for his life. I, on the other hand, was so taken aback by fear that for a few seconds I didn't know what to do. And then an idea came to my mind. I ran close to her and poked her in the eye with my picking up tool. This made her move away while holding her one eye, writhing in pain, and I picked up Muriel from the ground. We both started running to the tree and turning back to see the lady chasing us like a mad dog. She was literally running like a four-legged animal. Stop, you little pigs. I'll catch you and break your necks like twigs. Stop. Obviously, we didn't stop. As soon as we got to our bikes, we bolted out of there. The lady chased us till the factory went out of our sight, and then we never saw her again. We didn't stop until we reached Muriel's house. I went home shaking like a coward and didn't utter a single word to my parents. Muriel and I both knew that we would be the ones to get in trouble for sneaking out and risking our lives, so we remained quiet about this lady. But the story doesn't end here. The next day, Muriel came for a sleepover at my place. We were just watching TV before dinner when my dad turned to the news channel. The county sheriff is said to have found the body of an 11-year-old boy in the dumpster near the abandoned factory this afternoon. As per the autopsy report, the boy died due to choking. The police officers also found a strand of red curly hair stuck in his hand. The sheriff is suspecting that the killer is a woman with red curly hair. The victim's family claimed that the boy left home on his bike this morning and never came home. His bike is also missing. No suspect has been identified yet. Muriel and I exchanged a fearful look. We told our parents about this woman right away, and they took us to the police station immediately. Both Muriel and I gave them information about the appearance of the woman, and they distributed her sketches so that people could identify her if she was seen in the area. But she never was. The boy's bike was found in the cornfield 2 days later, but there was no sign of that woman. The fact that if Muriel and I didn't get the chance to escape that night, one of us, or maybe both of us, might have been dead already. Most people often have a bad impression about dumpster diving, but in reality, one can find many precious, completely unused items which have just been thrown away. Some of you might not know that there are dedicated dumpster divers who don't do this because of the financial crisis. It's more like a treasure hunt experience for them. I used to be one of them. Now, you're probably wondering, why did I stop? That's where this one incident comes in that shook me for life. It was a Wednesday. I was surfing through Netflix, not finding anything interesting enough to watch, so I decided to take a stroll through the neighborhood. I lived in the small house with my dog Duty. On my way out, I kissed him and said, You're up for watch duty, boy. See you later. He wagged his tail and I grabbed my backpack and laughed. The plan was to roam around the neighborhood dumpster trying my luck. I had already found an iPhone and 2 silver candle stands, which I sold at a pawn shop in exchange for a good price. Hence, I was pretty confident and excited to see what I could find that night. I rode on my bike and started searching for a favorable spot. After wandering for 15 minutes with no luck, I finally discovered this huge dumpster located at the railroad. It used to be an attractive railway track, but since the nearby station burned down in a terrible fire, this place had become abandoned. I'm not an easy scare, so standing near an abandoned railway track right next to the woods in the middle of the night didn't raise my heartbeat at all. Like I said, it wasn't my first time diving into a dumpster, so I was cool with the situation. I parked my bike under a tree and walked to the dumpster. I always carried rubber gloves because obviously trash is trash at the end of the day. Many times I found used syringes and contaminated belongings which I didn't want to touch with my bare hands, so I put on gloves and my torch helmet to begin the expedition. The sound of frogs and crickets accompanied by howling coyotes kept reminding me how the night was getting younger. The dumpster was filled with leftover food which was rotting already. The foul smell irked me, but I still kept going. I found a large trash bag and tore it to see the contents inside. They were mostly household waste along with baby diapers, empty cereal boxes, ragged clothes, and a Teletubby soft toy about 2 feet in length. I couldn't identify what color it was due to the muddy stains covering it. I kept the toy aside, thinking that it would be a good gift for duty. I continued searching for 10 minutes more and concluded that this wasn't my lucky night. Taking the soft toy, I decided to head home. I was riding my bike while staring at this Teletubby doll I had just found. There was nothing suspicious about this toy except it felt a little heavy. I reached home at around 1:30 a.m. Duty started barking as soon as he saw me. I entered the house to be showered with an enormous amount of licking and cuddling from him. This, of course, was his way to say that he was glad I was home. I caressed his furry back and said, "Hey, boy, look what I found. Your luck proved to be better than mine tonight." Saying this, I showed Duty the toy, but didn't get the reaction I was hoping for. As soon as he saw the toy, he moved back whimpering like he wasn't happy at all to see it. "What's wrong, boy? Don't you like it?" He made that squeaky cry as if he was trying to tell me to get rid of this piece of junk. I guessed it was probably the dust and trashy smell making him disinterested, so I threw it into the washing machine. Slowly, the mud started to come off, and when I took it out, I realized that it was a doll of Lala, the big yellow Teletubby. I was going to put it in the dryer when I flipped the toy and my heart stopped. On the back of that toy, I could spot a few lines written with a marker. It read, "In remembrance of baby Kyle, may you find peace in heaven." Jesus, did I just pick up a doll that once belonged to a dead kid? That's when I heard Duty let out a spine-chilling howl, and the power of my house shut down. I stood in the darkness holding the toy. For the first time, it felt like something was not right with it. The eyes of Lala glowed in the dark as if they were alive. Suddenly, my doorbell rang and I almost got a heart attack. Bloody hell. Duty came running to me and whimpered like he was scared. Who could it be at this hour? I slowly walked to the door and looked through the eyehole. What I saw made my skin crawl. The scary-looking man with a huge grin on his face was standing on my porch. He had an upside-down cross engraved on his forehead with a sharp object. Blood was still dripping from his forehead, flowing down his nose. A strain of blood flowed down to his lips, and he licked his blood and said in a raspy, spine-chilling voice, "I think you have something that doesn't belong to you." What? Who are you? I've come to take the doll you picked up from the railroad dumpster. How do you know it's me? Baby Kyle told me. What? Baby Kyle wants to go home. He doesn't belong with you, so give him back now. I couldn't make out what shocked me the most at that moment. A freaky-looking man who probably worships the devil has come to my doorstep, or I just picked up a doll that belonged to a dead kid once. For the first time in my life, I was scared for bringing home something from a dumpster that wasn't mine. I said in a confused voice, "Did you follow me? I do not have time to chit-chat with you, you poor mortal. Just hand me the doll and I'll be on my way." "Why do you need this doll so desperately? Enough with your rubbish. Give me my doll back. Do it. Do it now." Saying this, the man started to bang his head on my door like a freaking psycho. He was banging his head so hard that at one point I thought his brains would come out. "Leave my house or I'm calling the cops, you freak." I immediately dialed 911 and the man suddenly stopped the sick stunt he was pulling off. He then took out his tongue, and believe me, I will never forget that scene. He had a black tongue, and suddenly, two other men came out from the sides who were hiding all this time. I realized they all came up with a plan, that the moment I will open the door, they'll lunge at me. Luckily, I didn't. When the cops came, the three men were gone. I told them everything and gave them a thorough description of those men. So far, they haven't been spotted, and I burnt the doll in my basement incinerator. I have no clue about why those men came to my house to get back a worn-out Teletubby doll that once belonged to a dead kid, but I am pretty sure that they were in a cult and used black magic and stuff like that. God knows what their intentions were, but I sleep with a knife under my pillow to date. The only reason I became an Uber driver is the flexible work hours, which could go perfectly with my college schedule. My family was totally out of the picture when it came to my financial stability. My mom was a drug addict and I'd never met my dad. So, working for Uber helped me stand on my own feet. I didn't have any plans for last weekend, so I decided to make good money. I started driving at around 10 p.m. and planned on finishing up at around 2. Since most rides were going between buildings on campus, I knew I'd be able to get a lot of drives within those 4 hours. Everything went smoothly in the first few rides. I had to drive drunk college kids to their dorms. At about 1:30, I got a notification that someone had requested a ride. Looking closer, I noticed where the ride was heading. It was some random address a few towns over, much farther than I'd gone with any of my other drives that night. At the moment, this made it more appealing to accept, since the longer the ride, the more I get paid. It didn't seem like a sketchy area or anything like that, so I accepted the request. It only took me 4 to 5 minutes to get to the address where I was supposed to pick up the last passenger of the night. The man didn't have a profile picture, but his name was Rudy. It also seemed like he didn't have any writer ratings, meaning his account was either brand new or he just never used it. I made a right turn onto the street where the address was located, and as I turned around, I started to think that maybe someone pranked me. The street was completely spooky. All the houses seemed abandoned or under construction. Graffiti, broken windows, boarded up front doors. I couldn't imagine anyone possibly living there, let alone having a party there. Suddenly, I noticed a man standing at some distance. He was looking the opposite way, which felt strange. Even stranger, he started waving. Not waving at me. My car wasn't even close enough for him to be doing that. He was out on the lawn, facing across the street, just waving at nothing. I thought once I approached the final destination, I would see some newer, fancier house built on the street that I'd never seen before. I was very wrong. The house that I approached, which was behind the lawn my passenger was standing on, looked almost more broken down than the rest. I stopped the car right in front of the lawn, which is when I finally got a chance to focus on the man's frame for a brief moment. He was of average height, dressed in a black jacket and brown joggers. He was still waving, but now seeing the car headlights, he stopped and turned around. My car lights illuminated his face pretty well, and that's when I almost peed my pants. The man had a horrible face. He had a stitched-up grin spreading ear to ear. Someone performed surgery on his face, making a Mr. Smiley Face forever. I wanted to drive off, canceling the ride, but as soon as our eyes met, I couldn't help but stop the car. He opened the passenger side door and sat next to me. For some reason, this sent a shiver up my spine. After directing my phone to start the navigation, I decided to start a conversation. "So, you live here, huh?" "Not anymore." His voice sounded weird as he talked, retaining that grinning face. "Oh, I see." He kept staring at me with that disturbing face, and I could feel my blood freezing. I wanted to ask him what was wrong with his face, but I didn't want to do anything to piss him off. I kept on driving silently when he asked me in that same disturbing voice, "Do you mind if I eat?" Normally I would say no, but again I didn't want to make this guy mad. "No, that's fine. Go ahead." "Thanks." He took out a bundle of aluminum foil and started to unwrap his food. I couldn't see what exactly he was eating, but he was making a lot of sounds while doing so. His food was squishy and soggy. With every bite, I could hear a loud chomp that made me nauseous. Also, a foul smell of his food choked the air inside the car. "Would you mind if I rolled down the windows?" "No." "Go ahead." After a disturbing moment of hearing this creepy man eat, I watched him finally finish the food. He threw the wrapper away and turned his head towards me. Now his face changed into a way scarier look. I guessed whatever he ate had too much ketchup in it, and now the red ketchup was smeared all over his toothy grin. His mouth, teeth, and hands were covered in that red, thick liquid. The man said, "Do you have water?" Sure. There's a bottle under your seat." I was freaking out at this point, but somehow I managed to be calm. His destination was 15 minutes away, and I was praying to God for this night to end quickly. The man grabbed the bottle, drank some water, and then suddenly asked a question that almost stopped my heart. "Are you scared of me?" What? Does my face scare you?" No. What is there to be scared about, sir? I'm just here to do my job," I answered, without end of sobbing, I fear. The man moved the rearview mirror towards him, looked his face in it, and said, "When I was a little kid, I had difficulty smiling. My mom got so angry at me as I always ruined every family photo, being the grumpy face. Remember how kids in school bullied me for being a creep. Once I turned 16, I left my house to search for something that will make me smile. And did you find it? No, but that didn't stop me from smiling, because I did find someone to finally put a smile on my face, which will stay like this forever." "Is that the friend you were waving at when I came to pick you up?" "You're not just a good driver, but also a clever boy." "Yes, I came here to show my friend the perfect family picture, where I could finally smile." "Oh, what did your friend say?" "It was proud of his work. In fact, you've been so nice to me. Do you want to see the picture too? I would love to show you." Not knowing what to say, I remained silent. The man slowly took out his phone from his jacket pocket and showed me his perfect family photo. I will never forget what I saw. It was a selfie taken inside a house. An old woman was lying dead on the couch. Her mouth was wide open like she died in terrible shock. This man was crouched down to her level, looking at the camera, flaunting his big grin. I took this with my mother today. I'm so happy that my smiling face was the last thing she saw before leaving this world. My friend did a good job, didn't he? Now I can smile all the time. All the freaking time. Everyone will call me the Smiling Man. I couldn't talk anymore. I just felt my body shutting down in fear. My vision got blurry, and I passed out while driving the car. I woke up 2 hours later in the hospital. A truck driver found my car crashed into a tree on the side of the road. Luckily, I had no injury, which seemed surprising to the cops as well as the doctors. None of them found a man that matched my description. When I think about that night, I get a lot of doubts that it was real. Did I really pick up Rudy, the Smiling Man? I was returning home from a horrible Tinder date. The guy was boring as hell, and I drank too much to sit through the date. I booked myself an Uber and was waiting at the stranded street for it to arrive. After a long search, my app dinged with the name Bill. The car arrived within 3 minutes. I jumped in the back, buckled up, and we set off to my destination. 4 water bottles were placed in a cooler pack in the middle seat along with the tray of snacks. I loved when drivers did this. I was going to give them 5 stars, especially after a night of drinking. Those water bottles were a godsend. I dug through the pile of snacks and plopped a blue Jolly Rancher in my mouth. Hey Bill, you got any good tunes? He didn't respond. Surely he heard me, or maybe I was drunk and slurring. I piped up again, this time louder, and after cleared my throat. Bill, excuse me? He looked at me through the rearview mirror. Oh, yeah. He proceeded to turn on the radio. A country song that's overplayed squeaked through the speakers. But Bill was acting fidgety, so I figured I'd just ride this out. It wouldn't be much longer till I was home. After a few minutes of awkward silence, Bill finally began to speak of. "You been drinking tonight?" I twiddled my thumbs and looked out the side window. I was so tired and just wanted to curl up in my bed. I replied, "Yeah, just a few drinks." His creepy eyes stared at me through the rearview mirror. A sick smile appeared on his face. I could tell that he was trying to catch a glimpse of me without me noticing. He spoke up again. This time, a grin spread across his face. "What did you all drink tonight?" "I had a tequila sunrise, old-fashioned, and a few glasses of champagne." He sat up in his seat, one arm still on the wheel. Those deep brown eyes kept flickering at me in the rearview mirror. Almost every couple of seconds, he started to pry. "You drink tequila often?" "No, just sometimes. Depends on my mood." "You drunk tonight?" Now, it started to make me feel uncomfortable. I didn't want to drive home myself, so one could assume that I was, at best, tipsy. Why was he asking me questions of my level of coherence? I kept my eyes focused out the window because I was getting creeped out by the accidental eye contact. "Oh, no, I'm just a little buzzed." "You want to be drunk, though? I have a bottle of tequila back there." I stared down at my phone. Just 3 more minutes till I was home. No thanks, I'm good." He had both hands on the steering wheel now. He was gripping it tightly and rubbing his hands against the leather. This nervous feeling rose in my gut. And I know that they say never to ignore your gut feelings. I was already in the car with this guy. I was a few minutes from my house. What was I supposed to do? I sat there and kept my eyes glued to the window. Perhaps if I didn't show any interest in conversations with him, he would just get me home without suggesting anything inappropriate. So, you're done partying for the night, huh? Responsible. I let out a short chuckle and agree with him. Yeah, done for the night. Well, help yourself to the water. I have plenty. My heart started to slow, and I realized that he was just trying to earn that 5-star review by being accommodating. Maybe he was just trying to be nice. I grabbed the water bottle and twisted the lid off and took a couple gulps. I saw the turn from my street up ahead, and a rush of relief washed over me. That is, until he passed it. That's right, he completely passed my street. I sat up in my seat, screwed the lid back on the water bottle, and spoke up. Another, that was my street that you just passed. Silence. Again, I spoke up louder this time. You passed my street. What he said in return made my heart jump into my throat. I know. I need you to turn back. My house is back. Shut up. I sank back in my seat as panic set in. My voice was shaking, and I'll admit, I was beginning to freak out. What's going on? What are you doing? He didn't answer. He kept driving past her as sweat broke down the nape of his neck. Again, I tried to muster up the strength to grab my phone from under the seat when I heard loud sirens of cop cars following us. I tried to keep my eyes open and my body's balanced. Where was he taking me? Why the cops following him? I didn't need to ponder his actions for too long, because I saw what he was speeding from. Red and blue flashing lights. Stop the car. Just sit down, you witch. I'm not getting arrested tonight. What? Who are you? Why are the cops following you? He talked too much. Saying this, he suddenly turned around and punched me so hard that my vision started to blur. That's when I saw another cop car coming from the opposite side of the road, blocking the Uber. The car came too close and a loud gunshot took place. Bill pressed the brakes too hard, and with the sound of tires screeching, I fainted in the back seat. When I came to my senses, I found myself lying on the hospital bed. 2 cops came in to talk to me, and what I found out from them scarred me for life. The shocking part was that my Uber driver wasn't an Uber driver at all. Bill, the poor Uber driver, was murdered long before I was picked up. The guy that had been driving me was a man named Trevor, who had murdered Bill after robbing him on the highway. Bill had been dead for 18 hours, leaving Trevor a trail of 3 different girls to be picked up under the guise of Bill. All 3 girls were brutally murdered at the hands of Trevor. By the time he had picked me up, the authorities had caught on. They were able to trace the GPS attached to Bill's Uber app, which is how they were able to trap Trevor the way they did. I don't know what or who tipped off the authorities, but I'm so thankful that the game of cat and mouse ended with me safe and sound. I feel horrible for those girls that didn't make it, and I can't even comprehend how scared they must have felt. The true weight of the situation was revealed when I turned on the news the next morning. The headline story talked about the 3 girls who were murdered, but the description of how they were found is what made my stomach heave in disgust. All three girls had refiling in their system. They found that there was a high quantity of the drug in a tequila bottle found in the car. Also, 6 bottles of water found in the back seat. Each had high levels of the drug. That's right, the water bottle that I drank from. That explains why I became so out of it. Again, I thought I was being responsible. Little did I know. Each girl had their ears, nose, and lips cut off. Based on blood analysis, the girls were alive during this. It still haunts me to think about what would have happened to me if the authorities hadn't found me. I'd been mutilated in a ditch right now. As they said, I dodged a bullet, all in the name of responsibility. For now, I'm just thanking my lucky stars that several good people saved my life from one bad person. It had been a week since I started working at the Circle K a few blocks from my house. I'd just graduated from high school, and instead of spending my summer free of responsibilities, I chose to get a job to start saving for my first college semester. Most of my shifts were taken, so I considered myself fortunate to snag the graveyard shift. I lived in a smaller town, so it wasn't unusual to see a lack of customers. I didn't exactly enjoy being up all night, but at least it was peaceful. I spent the majority of my time with my creepy coworker, Jim. He was a short, older man with a bald spot on his head that reminded me of George Costanza. He was pale and plump. His gut was round and indicated he'd pounded one too many beers on his days off. His eyes were beady and sunken in. They hid behind thick glasses, yet still managed to give me the chills when his gaze would meet mine. I'd catch him staring at me sometimes, until I felt so uncomfortable that I'd have to turn away. I assumed he was a loner. He didn't interact with me or anyone who came into the store. The only thing that would bring him to life was when we'd get the occasional unruly loiterer outside. His solemn mood would shift to anger. He'd shout, ball his fists, and make threats that would scare them off. As crazy as it seemed, it was effective. I felt safe. One night, as I bounced into the store, feeling energized and ready for my shift, he was standing behind the register, his face red and sweaty. He wiped his forehead with the back of his wrist and looked up at me. Claire. He grumbled. Hi, Jim. You okay? I'm fine. Listen, stay out of the restroom. Something's wrong with the plumbing. I called the manager. They'll have someone come fix it in the morning. If you need to go across the street to the diner and use theirs. They're open all night. He furrowed his brow and pushed the bridge of his glasses up with a pudgy index finger, then huffed. Okay. Thanks for the heads up. I gave him a confused look before clocking in. I didn't exactly like the idea of going out of my way just to pee, but our store was small and only had one unisex restroom, though I didn't have a choice. Jim didn't seem like himself at all. He'd never spoken so many words to me in one night, and he looked exhausted. Perhaps he and the plunger had duked it out in the restroom and he lost the battle. I chuckled at the thought as I began my shift. A few hours passed and I was busy restocking items in a corner near the restroom. I was humming one of my favorite songs when a loud thump startled me. "What was that?" I yelped. Jim rushed over. "What was what?" he demanded. Another thump was heard and I jumped. "That noise." He grabbed my arm and yanked me away. "It's the pipes. I told you, something's wrong with the plumbing. Don't go in there." "I wasn't going to," I stammered. It was just the pipes." Jim scowled at me and then turned away to help a customer who'd walked in. A few hours later, he announced that he was heading across the street to the diner and would return shortly. He handed the mop to me and told me to finish what he'd started. I did what I was told. As I moved across the floor, sliding the mop around, it happened again. The thumping. I froze. I was no plumber, but the noise I was hearing sounded nothing like pipes. I set the mop aside and held my breath as I inched closer to the restroom and placed my hand on the knob. I turned it slowly. I was going to find out what it was. I let out an exasperated sigh, realizing it was locked. I reached for the mop so I could get back to work, but paused when I heard it again. It was getting louder. The hairs on my arms and back of my neck frickled. My heart raced as I tried to swallow the lump in my throat. I rushed back to the door and pressed my ear against it. The thumping continued. Curiosity had gotten the best of me, so I hurried to get the keys to the restroom. I couldn't find them. I quickly searched for something to pick the lock. I found a paper clip and shook my head, knowing it probably wouldn't work, but I had to try anyway. I grabbed it and ran back to the door. I bent it and poked it in the keyhole, wiggling it around. I stopped and my eyes widened when I heard the entrance door chime. Jim was back. I didn't say a word and listened as he walked in. I looked over my shoulder and saw him standing behind me, staring. "I told you not to go in there, Claire. Don't listen." He spoke with a grave tone as he slowly inched closer towards me, his eyes burning into mine. "I don't think that's thumping in the pipes, Jim. I need to check it out. Where are the keys?" I turned to face him. I tried to sound bold despite the intimidating expression on his face. "I have them. Don't worry about it. Get back to work." He pointed towards the register and snapped his fingers. "No, I'm going to call the manager. This is crazy." I pulled my cell phone from my back pocket, and that's when he lunged at me. I screamed and tried to get past him, but he shoved me. I fell back against the door. His solemn mood quickly switched to one of anger, and I panicked. I remembered how angry he'd get with the loiterers. "Stop, Jim, please. You're scaring me," I begged. His face was flushed and his fists were clenched. "You girls never listen, do you?" His voice was hoarse and his eyes darted from side to side. He was contemplating his next move, and I didn't want to be there for it. I rushed to one side and squealed as he tried to shove me again. I managed to get past him and tried to bolt for the door, but his stout body was faster than I'd expected, and he wrapped his arm around my waist, stopping me. His breath was hot and heavy on my neck. "It looks like I'm gonna have to punish you too." He grunted into my ear and squeezed his arms tight around me. What the hell are you talking about? Let me go." I reached back and dug my nails into the side of his face. He cried out in pain, letting go long enough for me to push away and try to make a run for it. I looked back and saw him following. His eyes seemed glazed over as he growled like a crazed beast and screamed profanities at me. Blood dripped from his cheek. A few buttons on his work shirt had busted off from the struggle, and his repulsive gut was exposed as he heaved himself at me once more. I was almost to the door when my foot slipped on the wet floor. I fell forward and landed hard, my head making a sickening thump as it met the tile. My vision was blurred as I looked back at Jim. He hovered over me and grinned, seeming proud that he'd won. My eyes fluttered. Everything went black. When I came to, I was in a hospital room with my mother. She explained that just as I had passed out, two large men entered the store and saw Jim trying to drag me to the restroom. They called the police and were able to keep him detained long enough for the authorities to get there. But what made my heart nearly stop was that she informed me of what they'd found in the restroom. It was a girl, gagged and bound. The thumping I'd heard had been her kicking as she struggled to get my attention that whole night. Jim told the cops that she was trying to shoplift, and he locked her in there as a form of punishment and was going to deal with her after his shift ended. The incident still gives me goosebumps to this day. Needless to say, I'm glad we both made it out alive, but I'll never be working at another convenience store again. This happened on my last night at the Circle K outlet, where I had worked for almost 3.5 years. It was around 5 a.m. I was arranging the shelves The assistant manager, Paul, was standing at the counter, watching some videos on YouTube. It was just the two of us that night. I wasn't expecting anyone soon, but suddenly, a pleasant-looking older woman walked in. She was dressed in all black and had an expressionless face. She poured 2 cups of coffee and walked onto the front to see Paul. He greeted her, rang her up, and asked, "That'll be all, ma'am." She stood there silently for a few seconds and walked back to the shelves. She kept staring at the products, thinking she'd forgotten something. Paul waited patiently for her to return. After a few minutes, the woman came back with a packet of instant ramen noodles. Paul rang her up and again asked, "All right, that's all then?" She silently walked back and back over to the shelves. She looked at me with a look of slightly panicked confusion. At this point, I realized that this pleasant-looking older woman was well-dressed in all black, quiet, and was wearing a gold cross. I looked at her and looked at Paul and said in a low voice, "I think she's going to a funeral." I looked at the clock and said, "All right, I have time for this." It was about 5:35, and I wasn't technically off till 6, so I walked across the store to where she was standing. She turned and looked at me with the strangest, hollowest eyes. I looked at her with as much compassion as I could muster, and I asked, "Who was it?" She gave me a look like she didn't understand how I knew. She opened her mouth to answer and started to wail instead. She began crying hysterically, loudly. She threw her arms around me and collapsed on the floor by the coolers, just a crumbled and broken person. I wrapped the woman in my arms. I held her while she cried, and I tried my best to comfort her with genuine concerns. She told me it was her husband and there had been an accident, a sudden and violent death, and she blamed herself. After 10 minutes of the most soul-shattering crying you can imagine, I helped her to her feet and I walked her out of the store into the parking lot. I ran back into the store and bought her coffee and went back out to talk with her. She hugged me and continued to cry. I talked to her about the fragility of life and how you can't blame yourself for accidents, no matter how much you believe it's your fault. They're not. I didn't want to leave her in such a terrible state. Finally, after an hour, she seemed like she pulled herself together. She stopped crying, fixed herself up, and looked at me and said, "What church do you go to?" "Well, I don't go to church." "Why not?" "Well, it's not really for me." "Well, have you accepted Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior?" No, I haven't." "Well, why not?" "Well, I'm an atheist." The woman's face churned into disgust. "You're a monster." I'm sorry?" "He who has not accepted Jesus will suffer an eternity in the darkest pits of hell." Being completely shocked by her sudden change of behavior, I moved away from her. She screamed, "You touched me. How dare you touch me with your unclean hands? You who dares make a mockery of the Bible? You who has turned your back against God. How dare you touch me? How dare you touch someone like me?" I nervously went back into the store while she screamed more and more obscenities at me. I walked behind the counter and Paul asked, "So, how'd it go?" I was too stunned to answer, but I tried explaining just when the Circle K entrance slammed open and the woman re-entered the store. But this time, she looked nothing like a laminated wife. Her eyes were bloodshot. Her body was shaking in anger. Paul sensed something wasn't right, so he said, Ma'am, are you all right? This place needs cleansing." "What?" "Ma'am, we clean here every day." Paul, it's not what she meant. What do you mean? I told him how the woman thinks I'm scum here because I don't believe in God. Thinking this was just a lightheaded manner, Paul walked close to the woman to make her understand where she was going wrong. And that's where she did the unthinkable.
Help me. Help me. These men are taking advantage of me. Oh, Lord, save me from these devils.
Saying this, she started ripping off her clothes like a lunatic. I quickly realized that she was trying to do. This woman was a nut job. She was trying to frame me and Paul as sexual offenders. Paul screamed, "What the hell's wrong with you? Leave now, or I'm calling the cops."
Yes, call them.
So I want you to call them so I can show them what you're doing to me.
Call them right now.
Bloody hell. You think you could beat me? I have the Lord on my side. And the cops will too, after seeing how you ripped my clothes off. You two monsters will suffer the wrath of the Almighty's judgment. That's when I decided enough was enough. I looked her in the eye and said in a stern, cold voice, "You know we have security cameras all over this place, right? So no matter what you do to yourself to frame us is getting recorded with actual evidence. So even if your Almighty sides with you, the cops won't. Because the law doesn't run on belief, but on evidence. And we will have to show to the cops when they arrive." Paul locked the doors so she can't run away. As soon as I said this, her face turned pale. She looked around the corners trying to spot the security cameras. Once she did, she took a few steps back and stopped making the scene she was making a few moments back. She then ran to the exit, opened the door to leave before we could lock her in. For one last time, she turned towards me and said something that will still give me goosebumps. "I'll never let you live in peace. Never, never, never." I left my job the next day. People might call me a coward, but I had this feeling that the woman would come back for me. And guess what she did the next morning? She did, with a gun. Luckily, Paul saw her pulling up to the driveway and immediately locked the door so she couldn't get in. He called the cops, but the woman escaped just a moment while she heard the cop sirens approaching. I changed my address long ago. God, I hope I never see that woman again. I was looking at the clock. It was 9:30 already, and I still had tons of work to finish before the deadline. I'd recently landed this new job, so there's no way I can risk it. The night was quiet, and I could see the pale moonlight illuminating the empty streets from my bedroom window. My poor stomach gnarled in hunger, making a serious rumble. Oh, it's time to eat. I grabbed my phone and checked the restaurants nearby. I was craving some pizza, so I dialed the Papa John's shop down the block. A man with a rough voice picked up the call. "Papa John? Hi, I would like to order a large cheese pizza with a soft crust and no toppings." "No toppings, huh? This is something new." "Ha ha 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 ha. Yeah, whatever. We're short-staffed tonight, so I will deliver your order myself." "Fine." I gave them my address and disconnected the call. I poured myself another cup of black coffee and continued to work on my laptop. I live in the small house that once belonged to my grandpa. He gave me this house in his will, so after finishing high school, I moved here to work. My neighborhood is generally identified as safe, but that night, things went the other way. For the next 15 minutes, my eyes were stuck to the laptop screen. I was so devoted to work that when the doorbell rang, it startled me. "Coming!" I took money from my purse and rushed to the main door. Without thinking much, I opened the door and saw a man dressed in a Papa John's uniform standing on my porch. He was overweight with a rusty beard and wide green eyes. Seeing me, a sinister smile appeared on his face. "Here's your order. 1 cheese pizza with no toppings." "Thanks." I went to hand him the money and he brushed his hand on my arm intentionally while taking it. A cold shiver ran down my spine as the man touched me. I felt uneasy, like something bad was about to happen, and I won't be able to stop it. I didn't react and turned to go inside, when suddenly the man grabbed me by the wrist and pulled me closer to him. He then got inside while threatening to murder me. Being a puppet of his hands, I closed the door behind us. The man was now inside of my home. He had a knife and I couldn't even scream. He sat down on the couch and blew me a kiss in the air. Now, be a good girl and bring me a beer and a plate, and do not try to be smart with me. Okay, I'll do as you say, but promise me you will leave after robbing me. Robbing you? Ha 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 ha. Who said I came here to rob you? Look, you can take all my money. I won't even call the cops or complain about you to Papa John's. Trust me. Lady, I don't even work at Papa John's. I just murdered their night staff and was leaving with the cash when you called. I thought I'd ignore it, but once I heard your voice on the phone, I recalled how lonely I am. I realized I have to be calm and handle the situation carefully. I have to defend myself wisely. I slowly walked to the kitchen and grabbed a plate and a beer just like he told me to. He drank the beer in one chug and chomped a big slice of pizza like a ravenous zombie, while staring at me in a very creepy way. The cheese melted from the slice along with the red pizza sauce, making his mouth and hands messy. He placed the knife down to wipe his face with his sleeve, and I snatched the knife right away. His expression changed as the table turned. He got up nervously and said, "Look, I'll leave, okay? Just don't do anything stupid." But it's my turn to have fun now. What? I always order my pizza with no toppings. Do you know why? What the hell are you talking about? I struck him on the hand with the knife, and a chunk of flesh got sliced. Blood came rushing, and he fell to the couch holding his bloody hand. His eyes were filled with fear. I felt bad for scarring him, but this is how I do it generally. Honestly, I did order my favorite topping. Have you ever tried cheese pizza with chunks of human meat on it? Oh my God, you're a psycho. The man got up and tried to run to the main door, but I stabbed him with the back. The knife pierced into his lung, or maybe his heart. He fell to the wooden floor with a loud thump. I locked the main door. I was furiously hungry, so first I decided to eat. I cut a huge chunk of meat from his back and then peeled out the skin. Cut the meat into little pieces and fried them in butter. I then added my favorite pizza topping to all the other slices left in the box. One by one, I ate them all. Delicious. I generally don't do this often. I only order takeout whenever I run out of meat. My own kind of meat. I kill 2 to 3 people in a month. Usually I go for homeless people who no one cares to find out about. This guy would have walked out alive if he didn't force himself in my house, so I hit the jackpot automatically. Now I will slice his meat into different cuts, segregate the bones and skin from the flesh. I feed the bones to the stray dogs, or sometimes just burn them in my backyard with my other garbage. And the skin? Well, I bury that with my victim's belongings, like his clothes, wallet, shoes. It's easy to hunt when you have a pretty face. People take you as a damsel in distress every time. Once I finish this guy, I'll go for a woman, but honestly, to me, men taste so much better. I don't know exactly what day my wife Naomi started sleepwalking. It was definitely within this past week, and the first night wasn't horrible. A little odd, sure, but nothing too crazy. I woke up to the sound of cupboards opening and closing. I looked over at my wife's side of the bed and noticed it was empty. I sighed and got out of bed, wiping the sleep from my eyes. She was standing near the cupboard and just repeatedly opening and closing the doors. It was like a child slamming the bedroom door again and again. "Ooh, Naomi, what's going on?" I called out as I walked close to her. She was standing stiff as a board, head staring straight down at the ground. Her right hand was reaching above her head with the cupboard handle gripped tightly, opening then closing the door over and over. "Naomi, what the heck are you doing?" She didn't stop. She stood in the same position, in the same rhythm, slamming the door. After staring at her with wide eyes for a few seconds, my brain finally woke up enough to realize she must have been sleepwalking. I'll admit my heart was racing pretty good. It's kind of a creepy sight to wake up out of a dead sleep. I placed my hand on her shoulder and gently guided her away from the kitchen. Thankfully, she didn't resist or anything. She mumbled a couple of incoherent words and allowed me to walk her back to bed. We went back to sleep, and that was that. For the first night, anyway. The next day, I told Naomi about her little sleepwalking incident. Instead of laughing like I thought she would, her face tensed and she looked very uncomfortable. "It's no big deal, babe. It did scare the shit out of me, though." She gave a small smile and nodded. I found it very odd that she seemed bothered by a small sleepwalking incident, but didn't press it any further. Maybe she had an embarrassing memory or something as a result, and she's embarrassed to sleepwalk. Either way, I figured if it happened again, I would just tell her about it. I honestly didn't think it would happen the next night as well. She never sleepwalked in the 16 years I've been with her. I figured the chances of it happening were pretty low. So I went about my day, not giving it another thought. Before I knew it, it was bedtime, and Naomi was fast asleep. I fell asleep soon after. Sometime in the middle of the night, I woke up again. This time, it sounded like a door slammed hard. My heart raced yet again as I rolled over to find Naomi's side of the bed vacant. I rolled back out of bed and prepared to gently walk her back. This time, I kind of knew what to expect, so I wasn't quite as alarmed. As soon as I opened the bedroom door, I saw Naomi. This time, however, she was standing in front of the bathroom door, which is located just 5 feet from our bedroom right in the hall. Her head was tilted at one side in a very creepy way, and she stared directly at me, her eyes wide open, so it looked like she was on drugs. Naomi. As soon as I said her name, her lips curled into the biggest, widest grin I have ever seen in my life. Goosebumps immediately covered my whole body as my heart almost bounced out of my chest. That wasn't my wife, Naomi. No way. We sat staring at each other with neither of us moving a muscle. I was too afraid to move, in fear that she would start to levitate and chase me or whatever. Finally, after maybe a minute or so, her smile slowly faded and she started blinking rapidly. That's when I almost died. My sixth sense kicked in and I quietly went back into the bedroom and closed the door, not making a single sound. I got back into bed but couldn't fall asleep. I just laid down listening to her open and close that door all damn night. Right before daylight, I heard the door stop moving, followed by footsteps coming down the hall. My heart was beating 1,000 beats a minute. She opened the door and walked up to the bed, slowly climbing back in. I remained as still as possible so it seemed like I was asleep. After maybe 5 minutes, I heard her begin to snore, and that's when my heart finally slowed down to a normal pace. The sound of our alarm clock blaring startled me, as I must have dozed off for a short while. The night's events were fresh in my mind as I groggily got out of bed and got ready for work. Before I walked out the door, Naomi woke up and kissed me goodbye. I acted as if nothing had happened, not knowing how to approach the subject. I figured I'd maybe talk to her when I got home or something, but for now, I needed to just get out. After a tiring day at work, I just felt like throwing myself into bed when I came home. As I entered the house, chills ran down my spine. The entire place was in darkness. The moonlight coming from the windows helped me to see around. Naomi, why is it so dark? Where are you? I turned around, hearing the giggle from behind, and there she was, standing behind me wearing her wedding dress. The white veil dropped down her shoulders and the sick smile was back on her face. Her eyes were closed. Naomi, you're scaring me now. Suddenly, her eyes opened and she grabbed my hand, bringing her face extremely close to mine. She started whispering like a psycho. No words, no meaningful sentence, just a gibberish whisper making a terrifying sound. Her lips were moving so fast and her eyes started to look up, down, left, and right like she was getting possessed. Naomi stopped. She let go of me and stepped back a few feet, and then she began to laugh. Her laughter echoed like a nightmare. I can never forget the sound of her horrifying cackle that made my heart stop. And just like all this sudden crazy, she turned back to the wall and started hitting her head on it. Once, twice, thrice, and then her unconscious body collapsed on the floor. I took her to the hospital and also talked to a psychiatrist. She stayed there for 2 nights, and on the 3rd night, she sleepwalked to the roof and jumped. I will never know what caused Naomi to sleepwalk, behave this way, or take her own life. I don't sleep well anymore. Fear of waking up to my dead wife sleepwalking keeps hammering me whenever I close my eyes. I was 10 years old when this incident took place. We lived in a small town in Nashville. The neighborhood was quiet and people minded their own business. Maybe that's why no one saw this coming. I was living with my parents and my mother was pregnant with my sisters. My father was busy on his farm and my mother was busy preparing the house to welcome the newborn. Feeling a little neglected, I often wandered around the streets riding my tiny bicycle. The neighborhood houses lay on both sides of the streets. Almost everyone was known to us, but there was also this one house that remained abandoned for years. Kids at my school used to address it as Creepy House, and no one ever went there after dark. One Saturday evening, I was riding my bicycle on the empty street when I noticed a black car parked next to the sideway of the Creepy House. To get a closer look, I paddled faster and stopped right in front of the abandoned house. Saplings and weeds were growing all over its roof and walls. Black muddy stains destroyed the paint of the house. I was staring curiously when the front door suddenly opened and a man came out of the house. He was wearing weird-looking trousers, the ones that flap at the bottom. His hairstyle was pretty weird too, parted on one side revealing his hairline in the middle. His head reminded me of a mushroom. I was so surprised to see someone move into the creepy house that I didn't notice the way the man was staring at me. His green wide eyes were scanning me like a vulture. He then smiled eerily and said, "Hi there, where do you live?" Now, I was aware of the saying stranger danger, so I lied to him. Next to the churchyard. And before he could say anything more, I turned out my bicycle and laughed. The man didn't try to stop me or anything. He just stood there and watched me leave. When I returned home, I didn't tell my parents about him because he didn't do anything suspicious. We sat down for dinner and that's when my dad made a suggestion. So, I met Pastor Jeff at the church today. He said the Miller boy's fallen sick. Isn't he the paper boy this month? Yeah. So, I told Pastor Jeff Liam will be this month's paper boy. Is it okay, Liam? Do I have to deliver to all the houses? Oh, what kind of a stupid question is that? Of course you would have to deliver to the entire neighborhood. Why? Is there a problem? So, I have to drop by that creep house too? Oh yes, since he told me the son of the owner of that house had come back. Really? That's a good thing. Finally, they'll renovate that ugly house. When do I start? Tomorrow, 5 a.m. 5 a.m.? Oh, come on, Dad. There's a reason it's called the morning newspaper, Liam. you'll get paid for this. Think about that. You'll be able to buy the new superhero toy you wanted last Christmas. I realized my dad was right. Also, it's only a matter of an hour. I can come back and get some sleep too after delivering the papers. Eventually, I agreed. The next morning, I woke up and geared up to start my day one as the town paper boy. My dad attached a small cart with my bicycle and I piled the paper on it. Though it was 5 a.m., the sunlight didn't pierce yet. It was partly cloudy, so the neighborhood was still in darkness. My dad waved at me and I started to deliver the papers. The lights of the houses were turned off. Everyone was in a deep sleep when I drove through the area. The job was simple. Stop by each house and throw the paper aiming at the porch, and move to the next one. That's it. One by one, I finished the houses and finally reached the creep house. I stopped and stared at the house for a second. It was no different either than the other houses at that hour. Lights were off, standing in silence. I picked up the last bundle of newspaper and aimed it to the porch. But right then, huge lightning struck nearby, and out of panic, my hand shook. I missed the aim and the tightly banded newspaper roll hit the porch window. The throw was strong, so the glass shattered immediately after it hit. Damn it! I looked around in panic, not knowing what to do. Should I run away? But they would know it would be me. Everyone knows I'm the paper boy today. If I go home and tell Dad, he'll ground me, no doubt. So I decided to walk onto the porch and apologize to the man for damaging his property. Maybe if he lets it go, the matter will be forgotten and I won't be penalized. I did as I felt. Not for a single second did it occur to me that the results could be completely different. I got down from the bicycle, pushed the dusty wooden gate and entered the creepy house lawn. As I walked, the thick grass munched under my shoes. I stopped outside the door and waited for the man to open it. But even though the sound was pretty loud, I didn't see any sign of the man. I waited for a few more seconds and then thought to ring the doorbell. I knew if I leave now without confronting him, it will eventually come out as I escaped after breaking his window. So, I rang the doorbell. Once, twice, thrice. Within 5 seconds, I heard heavy footsteps coming down the stairs and stop on the other side of the door. Without opening it, the man said in a raspy, irritated voice, "What do you want?" I'm here to apologize for breaking your window." He got quiet and then I heard him walking to the window. Even though the lights were turned off, I saw the man quite clearly when he came to the window. But I guess he didn't realize that. In the small glimpse, I noticed the white vest he was wearing. The vest was covered in bloodstains. Even his hands were drenched in blood. The man came back to the door and said, "It's fine. Anyway, I have to repair this house. You can leave now." I, on the other side, frozen in fear, lost my voice. Why the hell is he covered in blood? Is that human blood? Oh God, we have a murderer living in the creep house. Hey, kid, I could still see you standing there. Don't you want to go home or what? No. I mean, yes, sorry. I quickly turned around and walked to my bicycle. I didn't want to run or show any tense movement because I knew he was still watching me. Once I got on the bicycle, I drove it like a fired bullet. Reaching home, I slammed the main door open, which my parents luckily didn't lock after me, and I started to scream for Dad. Dad! Dad! He came rushing and my mom woke up too. I started hovering for air while crying like hell. My mom sat me down and asked, "What happened, Liam? Are you hurt? Come on, it's okay. Did something happen?" That man had creep house. Blood on him. That man? What? Yes, he didn't. We saw him. Please do something, Dad. Thank God my dad believed me that night without question. Otherwise, that man would have gotten away with what he did. Once the cops arrived, they found the man stuffing a dead body inside a sack filled with sand. The corpse belonged to a woman named Melissa Karen, who was murdered on the highway 3 days back. The CCTV camera captured the woman getting stabbed by a hooded man, but there was no clue who that person was, And also, Melissa's body was never found until this night. It came out that the man murdered her on the road and realized the CCTV recorded his crime. Not being sure whether the camera could capture his face or not, he decided to take no risk. Even if the cops find him, they would have to find a body to convict him. So he brought her into this creepy house, realizing it's abandoned. He hid her body in the basement and planned to get rid of it, piece by piece, day by day. His name was Kruger Hall, and he was a charged felon in Orange County. Pretending to be the dead owner's son, he planned to acquire the house to avoid the cops or any further attention. Kruger Hall was arrested for first-degree murder and now serving his time on death row. I will be relieved the day he's hanged. My mom says I probably saved the world from a rising serial killer. When I was in my early 20s, I lived in a small farm town where everyone knew everyone's business. I couldn't walk down Main Street without someone waving or wanting to talk about the latest gossip. My neighbor, Pearl, would sit on her porch in the evenings and demand I join her. "Did you hear about Tommy?" she'd ask in her soft, frail voice as she sipped on her tea. Most of my acquaintances were busybody elderlies who'd lived there ever since they were born. Whispers about Mrs. Lawson, the crazy cat lady, or Ronnie, the bartender with wife problems, was enough to keep Pearl and the others buzzing for weeks. Had they pulled me aside to ramble, as if I cared. It was overwhelming. I felt a sense of relief when Elliot, the paper boy, would stop by each morning to drop off the daily newspaper. I know it sounds silly, but even the smallest of chats with this teenager was enough to stimulate my brain and keep me from going completely insane. Elliot was one of those lanky, tall boys with shaggy hair who always wore alternative band t-shirts. We shared some of the same musical interests, so we talk about singers, new albums, and our favorite songs. He'd show up on my porch with bright eyes and fresh topics to discuss. It was great. Until it wasn't. I noticed that he started to act a little different with me when he'd show up with the paper. He'd stand a little closer while we talked, look at me with adoration in his eyes, and even brought me a mixed CD full of sappy love songs one time. He stood there bashful as he gave it to me. He placed his hand over mine and let it linger for a moment. "I hope you like it," he said before walking off. It was a bit too much for my liking, but I brushed it off as a young boy with an innocent crush. I started dating a nice man named Zach, and as our relationship progressed, he'd occasionally sleep over. Elliot didn't seem happy about this at all. Sometimes Zach would go out and grab the paper for me and would come back inside, telling me that the paper boy was extremely rude. He'd make a snide remark about Zach's physical traits, or flat out tell him he was no good for me and that I deserved someone better. When I asked Elliot to stop, things got worse. He'd leave cringy love notes inside the paper, telling me I was his soulmate. Zach was infuriated and was starting to think I had some sort of inappropriate relationship with this boy. This was definitely not the case. So, in an attempt to smooth things over, I waited for Elliot one morning. Zach hadn't stayed over that night, so I figured it'd be a perfect time to talk. I stood on the porch as I watched him ride up on his bike. He hopped off and brought me the paper. "Hi, Jenna." His eyes lit up when he noticed that Zach's car wasn't in the driveway. "It's good to see you. No Zach today?" "No, not today." I folded my arms over my chest and let out a deep sigh. "Elliot, we need to talk." "About?" He moved closer to me and ran a hand through his messy hair. He reached out and grabbed my hand, and I quickly pulled it back. He was making my skin crawl with his infatuation. "This needs to stop. What you're doing is inappropriate and unprofessional. There's nothing between us, and I think it would be best if I canceled my subscription to the paper. I don't want to get you in trouble with your job, so let's just forget about all this." "That's fine." said with a nod, then stepped back. He looked disappointed, but didn't say anything else. I was taken back by how okay he was, but I was also relieved. Great, you take care, I said, then turned to go inside. Later that night, I was watching TV as I waited for Zach. It was some silly game show, but it kept my attention for the most part. I heard the familiar knock and yelled for him to come in. I heard the door open up and looked up, ready to greet him. But I froze at what I saw. The person standing in my doorway was wearing Zach's black jacket and baseball cap. But it definitely wasn't Zach. "What are you doing here?" I demanded, jumping up from my seat. Panic washed over me as he stared me down. His eyes were hungry, and he was panting like he just ran a mile. "Elliot." My voice was calm, even though I was trembling. "Where's Zach?" The look on his face turned to one of pure hatred. His eyes were much wider than usual. He should be the one to stop coming around, Jenna. Everything was fine before. Make it go back to how it was before, he begged. I shook my head as I tried to make sense of the situation. "Where's Zach?" I demanded once more. He let out a disturbing laugh. He looked nervous as he shifted one foot from the other in front of me. He turned and hurriedly shut the door behind me, then looked back at me. "I didn't mean to hurt him," he said. He trailed on, closing his eyes as he got lost in thought for a moment. "Hurt him? What did you do?" Tears welled up in my eyes. I didn't want to accept that this was really happening. It had to be some type of horrible dream. "Don't worry," he said with a chuckle. "I didn't kill him. I wish I did, though. Then you wouldn't have to choose." "What? You're crazy." "I'm not crazy. Shut the fuck up." He got closer, staring down at me as his eyes burned into mine. "You're so beautiful, Jenna." He ran his fingers through my jawline, pushing my hair behind my ear. My chin quivered as I looked up at him. I wanted to run, but I was frozen in with fear. I didn't know what to do. I just kept hoping that I'd wake up from this nightmare soon. It's me or him, you know. There can't be two of us. But don't worry, I can be just like him. See? He mentioned to the jacket and the hat. I could be anything you want. He started humming a melody that seemed familiar. Remember this song? I bet Zach doesn't even know this song. He continued humming, then paused, speaking in a spine-chilling tone. I think about you all the time, Jenna. He doesn't know you like I do. I'm perfect for you. Tears began to stream down his face, but he forced a smile. I could see the pain in his eyes and hear it in his voice. It was sickening. I've invested so much time into you. Why don't you see that? He placed a hand on the back of my neck and leaned down. Just as he was about to kiss me, a pounding at the door made me jump back. Jenna? A familiar frail voice shouted from the porch. There's a man lying in your driveway. Jenna opened up the door. Zach, I muttered, coming back to reality. Jenna, Pearl yelled. I'm calling 911. Elliot panicked. She can't call. I'll get in trouble. I'll be grounded. Tell her to go away. He placed his hands to his ears like a child who didn't want to hear something. He squeezed his eyes shut and sat down, crossed legs on the floor. He began to rock back and forth, tuning the world out as he sat back humming. I opened the door and faced Pearl. She peered past me. Is that the nice young man who delivers papers? I grabbed her arm and we ran across the lawn to her house. We made the call and waited for the ambulance and the police. Elliot was in the same position, rocking back and forth when they arrived, and took him away. "I love you, Jenna," he sobbed as they put him in the back of the police car. He was arrested and eventually admitted into a psychiatric facility. Zach had a pretty bad head injury, but made a full recovery. Apparently, Elliot had hit him with a brick when he arrived at my house and got out of his car. If Pearl hadn't been such a nosy neighbor and shown up when she did, who knows what would have happened. To this day, whenever I hear the song that he was humming, I shudder. He'll always be there in the back of my mind, haunting me. From 2016 to 2020, I worked for one of the largest grocery stores / retail chains in the Midwest. I started as an hourly clerk and worked my way up to assistant store manager. The story I'm about to tell you happened in 2019, when I had already been promoted to assistant manager. I'm a female, and I was 26 years old at the time. I will share a little bit about the role, as it will play into the story later on. As an assistant manager, I worked all sorts of crazy hours. I worked first, second, and third shifts, weekends, holidays, etc. If you can think of it, I worked it. I managed different departments, held customers, handled merchandise, and dealt with human resources tasks. For the most part, I enjoyed the job. One of the few things I didn't like, though, was being moved from store to store. The company would keep you at one particular store for 1 to 2 years, and then move you to another store at random. You have no say in which store they move you to, which sucks. Little did I know that the one thing I didn't like would be the best thing to happen to me while I worked there. Now onto the story. In the summer of 2018, I was moved from a very nice store to help manage a somewhat ghetto store in my city. Around that same time, I found out I was pregnant with my first child. It was a double whammy, to say the least. Half of the customers at the store were awful. I had rotten seafood thrown in my face because I wouldn't do a refund. One of my front-end clerks was robbed at gunpoint, and I saw a customer poop on the floor, and much more. These are all stories for another time, though. Despite these adventurous events, the worst of my time at the store started when my pregnant belly began to show. It was early January 2019, and I was around 30 weeks pregnant. I remember I was stocking produce when a man in his 50s or 60s then approached me, asking for help. He had a gray beard, was overweight, he wore grungy clothes, and his hair was greasy. When I turned around to greet him, he immediately noticed my belly and then said, "Wow, you're pregnant." Me being friendly, I told him, "Yeah, I'm having a little girl, and I'm very excited about it." "Well, congratulations," he said. After that short exchange, I helped him find his items, and he was on his way. I interact with so many customers that I just put it out of my mind. A couple of days later, I was closing the store when I saw that same man yet again. He approached me, and he asked me how I was doing. I said I was doing well, just tired, and that I was ready to get off my feet. That's when he started to ask me questions about myself, like where I lived, how old I was, where I graduated high school and college, etc. I answered everything honestly, until he asked me which hospital I'd be delivering at. For some reason, that question was odd to me. What 50-year-old man asks that? It then dawned on me then I shouldn't have answered all of his personal questions. I excused myself from the customer, telling him I had to get back to work and to have a nice night. After that second encounter, I noticed that he would come to the store every day, but that he would only approach me at night when the store was pretty much empty. He would only have a couple of items in his cart. I tried to avoid him the best I could, but if he decided to ask for help, I couldn't turn away a customer. The next encounter I had with them was downright disgusting. when I was walking him down an aisle to find the item he was requesting. He said, "You're having a girl, right?" "Yes, I am," I said. "Well, your husband must have shot deep in order to get you a girl," he said. I stopped dead in my tracks, flabbergasted. I just stared at the man, because no words could form in my mind. He then filled the silence by saying, "Well, thanks for helping me. Have a great night," and walked away. I should have told my manager and the associates, but I let it go. For the next few weeks, I would see the man by and walk in the opposite direction, or go into the back room where the grocery stock was held. The man caught on that I was avoiding him, so he started going to the front desk to ask for me directly for help. If the front desk called me saying that a customer needed me, I would describe the man to them. If it was him, I would tell the front desk I was busy and to handle his needs. I was very uncomfortable, to say the least. By this point, it was February, and I was due next month. I was thankfully able to avoid interacting with the man, even though I knew he was watching me. At least I avoided speaking to him. The last time I interacted with him was the worst, and I was beyond scared. It was just like the first time that I interacted with them. I was in the produce department, back turned, and he said, "Hey, excuse me." I turned around with a smile, but that quickly faded when I saw who it was. He said, "You've been avoiding me." "No, sir. We've just been busy the last few weeks. How can I help you?" I said. He looked me up and down, and I kid you not, he said, "Do you think your husband will still want you after you have the baby? Do you think you'll lose all that baby fat?" In my mind, I was just like, dude, what the fuck? The customer then said, "You know, I can take care of you and your baby girl." At that point, I had enough. I was once again speechless, but I was able to walk away this time. I went into the management office and I called my husband, who of course was like, "What the fuck?" and furious. I went home early because I was so upset. So, remember at the beginning of the story, when I shared that the company likes to move you to different stores? Well, shortly after that encounter, due to medical reasons, I was induced early and had my daughter. After my maternity leave was over in May, I was transferred to a much nicer store with normal customers. I never had an encounter like that again with the customer, and thankfully, I never saw that man again. In March 2020, I got a new job with another organization, and I've been there since. To that creepy 50-year-old man who stalked me, followed me, and harassed me during my pregnancy, I hope you never do that to anyone else again, pregnant or not. If you're a woman, please speak up if anyone makes you feel uncomfortable. I really wish I would have. Stay safe, everyone, especially if you work in retail. There really are some crazies out there. This story takes place a little over 3 years ago, when I was 19 years old. My best friend and I were spending the day together shopping. We went to the closest mall to us for food, and whatever else we might find that was worth splurging on. Everything was going great throughout the day so far. I don't remember exactly what we did before this, but we ended up at the mall cafeteria for lunch. Now, for some context, the entire mall was pretty much dead. Both my friend and I worked part-time jobs to help give through school. It was a weekday, during November of 2019. Most people were at work or school, and we were off work and class for the day. Like I said, the entire mall was pretty much clear for us to enjoy to ourselves, except for a few families and some folks grabbing lunch. The cafeteria there is very large, and populated by only my friend and I at this time. I remember sitting down with her at the far side of the food court, so that when we were done eating, we could dump our trays and walk right over to the open stores. As we eat, I had noticed a man approaching the cafeteria from the side of the mall that we were sitting closest to. At first, I didn't really pay attention to him, because after all, it is a public place. However, I grew overly cautious when the man then picked his place to sit. He sat 3 or 4 tables away from us. Keep in mind, this cafeteria is very large. He could have sat anywhere, even by the beautiful fireplace couch seating area. But no, he chose a particularly close table to us. I shrugged it off, as I didn't want to assume the worst of a stranger just minding their own. After a minute or so, I noticed that he wasn't minding his own. I felt his eyes on us, and that's where they stayed. I tried not to look over too much, but his gaze was like fire in my body. 7 to 10 minutes went by without the creepy eyes leaving my body. I didn't mention anything to my friend right away, because the man was within hearing distance. So I just kept my cool, and I figured he was just a lonely creep willing to watch 2 beautiful young girls while they chatted and ate. Not cool, but not necessarily sinister either. I have enough knowledge about stalkers and creeps to know what to do in this situation. Part of me wanted it to be nothing, and we'd just go about our day shopping and laughing like usual, with no weirdos on our tail. But the other part of me was fully on edge, and ready to take care of any danger we may be faced with. So, to test the strange waters, I said aloud, "Hey, let's go get some Starbucks when we're done here, so that we have enough energy to continue shopping." My friend agrees, and soon we grab our trays to dispose of the food. The man gets up from his table and begins walking in the direction of the Starbucks. We walked behind him about 20 feet for a bit, before, just as I predicted, it walks right into the Starbucks. The guy was probably in his mid-20s to early 30s. He was around 6'3", with bright red hair and a very slim build. He stood ahead of us in the shoreline right before the counter. I got closer to him as he ordered. "Hello, sir. What can I get you started for today?" asked the barista. Yeah. Just give me that," he said in a low tone, pointing towards the first sweet treat he saw in the desserts case. Clearly spending no time thinking about his order, the barista grabbed a cake and finished the transaction. Then he just laughed. I was relieved to no longer see him, even after we ordered and made our way to the next few stores. Unfortunately, though, that's not the end of it. Honestly, I don't know how diligent I was being after that point. I was just glad he was gone. When we left the mall, I needed to pick up a few things for my mom from the Walmart across town. When we arrived there, I started on my list to begin the hunt for the items that my mom needed. We eventually find ourselves in the kids' toy aisle. I was grabbing a few things for my niece for Christmas. I remember leaving my friend in the aisle while I went to explore the next one over for more options. As soon as I rounded the corner, my heart stopped. There stood the guy from the mall, casually pretending to look at little girl toys. I froze for probably 30 seconds. He saw me, and when we made eye contact for a moment, I immediately turned my back the other way and grabbed my friend by the wrist, yanking her towards the front of the store with me without saying anything to her. When I felt we had enough distance, I called my mom to ask her what to do, while very loudly explaining the situation so other shoppers around us could hear. She told us to check out as fast as possible and pay attention to the other cars as we drove the 20 minutes back to my apartment. Thankfully, that was the end of it. Then we never did see him again. God only knows what his intentions were, but I'm certain they weren't any kind of good. Moral of the story: always be vigilant and trust your gut. Not to toot my own horn, but if I wasn't with my friend, I'm sure she would have ended up in a more terrifying situation, as she's just not as paranoid as I am. Be safe, everyone. Having been recently divorced with 2 kids of elementary age, I decided to move halfway across the country to be closer to my family. I quickly landed a job as a manager of a retail store that mostly catered to factory workers, firefighters, policemen, and city employees. The store was located in a plaza, and at about 5 o'clock, all of the shops and breakfast diners were closed, and my store was the only store open until 6 p.m. So it was deserted. It wasn't so bad during the summer, but in the winter months when it would get dark by 6 o'clock, it could get a little creepy. I'm not the type of person that scares easily. I'm always aware of my surroundings, and I've always been very athletic. Most of the time I close by myself. I became familiar with many of the regular customers that work for the city. Everyone was very polite and friendly. I did make one good friend who worked as a supervisor for the city. He would often bring his employees in for boots or uniforms that the city would supply for them every 6 months. There were also times where I couldn't leave the store for lunch, so he would often bring me a burger and we would sit and talk for a bit. Many times he would drop by after 5 on his way home, or he would call me. One day, about 15 minutes before closing, a man walked in the store. He was very tall and solidly built and sat down. I remembered seeing him earlier standing across the street as I'd walked to get something out of my SUV. He just watched me as I went back into the store. I started to ask him what kind of boots he was looking for, and the conversation quickly took a turn. They started saying some very strange things that made me very uncomfortable, telling me how lonely he was and how bad he needed to be held and that he wanted a hug. He said that if I gave him a hug, he'd feel so much better, but I didn't acknowledge it. I knew I was in trouble. I thought if I ran towards the back door and didn't make it, no one would hear me scream. To get to the front door, I had to get past him, but he was big. When he was talking, he had a grin. I think he was trying to smile. So I started to think, I need to keep him talking, because I knew he was getting ready to make a move. So with one hand under the counter, I slowly took the phone off the cradle and had a number on the store phone that would automatically call the last number that was called. It happened to be my friend who was on his way home. He heard a very weird conversation but couldn't really make out the man's voice or everything that was being said. But he got a really bad feeling and he automatically popped a U-turn and headed for the store. At this point, I'd been trying to calmly keep the conversation going for about 15 minutes. But it seemed like everything was just going in slow motion. I absolutely knew if I told him that I needed to get out because I needed to close the store, that would have been a signal to get up and do whatever he was going to do. Because then he would know that no one was coming to help me close. And by this time, the store definitely should have been closed. I was trying to change the conversation, but he kept telling me how lonely he was and looking towards the back of the store because it was where we kept the overstock. And I just knew he was putting a plan together. We both got very quiet, and he still had that stupid grin on his face. But his eyes were not friendly. I don't know why I felt calm, but definitely anticipating the worst. I can only describe it as a quiet before the storm. He then stood up, and he just looked at me. 10 seconds later, the door flies open, and walks in my friend, who's a little bit shorter, but also wider and muscular. He came and stood in front of the counter, then asking, "Why are y'all still open? Shouldn't you be closed by now?" He then looked at the man standing there, then telling him, "Sir, I think you need to go. The store's closed." The man got a huge grin on his face, looked at me, looked back at my friend, and never said a word. He stood there for about 5 seconds, turned around, and then finally walked out. I quickly locked the door, and my friend asked me what happened. When I then started to tell him everything that happened, and that's when the tears just started to flow. My babies were in the back of my mind, and I knew it was going to be a knockdown, drag-out fight. These things can happen quickly, and I think what actually saved me was that I assessed the situation. I did what I could do to get help and not panic. A physical confrontation was my last resort. Always trust your gut and stay alert. Think about it. Can we get your name? Ready? Get my name. Okay. I don't have like anybody who has your name. If you just tell us what your name is. It's James. James what? Owens. The story I'm about to share has changed my life forever. I haven't been the same after it happened. I was in college, incredibly shy and a socially awkward girl. I wanted to get into dating, but my insecurities always pulled me back. So, following a friend's suggestion, I opened an account on a dating site called matchmaking.com. I put a moderate-looking picture on my display and waited for someone to match me. A week went by without any luck until one night I got a request from a guy named James Holmes. His display picture was a fan art of Batman. We had a small talk about what we do and where we live. James said he's a neuroscience student. To my surprise, I found out he lives in the same neighborhood as mine. I wanted to talk more, but he straight away asked if he could meet me and talk face to face. The fact that he knows how I look, but I don't have a single clue about his appearance, made me a little worried in the beginning. But then I thought, what harm will come even if I go on this blind date? After all, we will be in public, and I can walk out at any moment if I don't like him. So, eventually I agreed, and we decided to meet at a local diner. Looking my best, I went to this diner on a Saturday evening. It was filled with people, which gave me a little relief. I waited for 5 minutes when a guy with red, curly hair and a pale face walked up to my table. Daisy? I awkwardly smiled and said, "Yep, that's me. Hi, I'm James. Sorry for making you wait. My practical classes went long today." "It's all right, I just got here." "Cool." He was wearing a Batman shirt, which by now convinced me that he was a Batman fan. There was nothing wrong with him, but still, I began to feel a little weird from the moment we met. His face was so pale that it seemed almost bloodless. He had tired, big eyes, probably from late-night studying. We ordered some food and started talking. "So, you want to be a neurologist?" Maybe. I have some other plans too." "What other plans?" "Nothing big, just want to kill a bunch of people." Ha 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 ha. No matter how weird his joke was, I had to laugh too. I thought his sense of humor was broken, and soon I got to know why. We talked some more, nothing intimate or what you'd expect to hear from a guy on a first date. Then came the time where we had to call it a night. I guess I should be going home then. If you don't mind, I'd like to drop you off. I felt better when he suggested this, so I agreed immediately. We got into his red pickup truck and started driving by the empty highway. Everything was fine for the first 10 minutes. We listened to some music and talked some more. But then suddenly he stopped his car on the stranded highway and turned towards me. The look in his eyes was nothing like before. A sick smile appeared on his face and he said, "I like you, Daisy. Can I tell you something?" Sure. "Do you know how it feels to die?" "Excuse me?" "I know that everything starts to go dark in front of your eyes. Then you feel your heartbeat getting super fast. And then you feel pressure on your neck, like your breath is coming to an end. Your body stiffens and you realize that this is it. Any second now. The heartbeat starts to slow down, almost coming to a stop." The way he went on explaining and then stopped talking made my skin crawl. Drops of sweat appeared on my forehead, and I felt what a huge mistake I had made by agreeing to come on this blind date. There were no living beings around us, and no one knew that I was sitting in a pickup truck on a stranded highway with a guy named James Holmes. No one would be able to find my body if he killed me tonight. With a fearful voice, I asked, How do you know all this?" "I felt it when I was 11 years old, and I tried to end my own life. But why? That's a story for some other time, Daisy. If you ever see me again." Are you ready to go home now?" I just couldn't speak anymore. I only nodded my head yes. He started the car and none of us said a single word the rest of the way. When we reached my street, my breathing finally became normal. He stopped a little distance from my dorm and leaned to open the door for me. For that few seconds, our faces were too close to each other. My eyes were stuck into his. I could feel his warm breaths on me. "Good night, Daisy." be the way you are, the beautiful, fragile flower after which you have been named. Never change. I hope no one ever plucks you out. Saying this, he opened the door and let me go. I can't explain how I got into my dorm. I deleted my profile from the dating site and all other social media pages. I changed my number and moved to another building closer to my university. I did everything that was in my power to not meet this man, James Holmes, ever again. Luckily, I never did, but I heard about him in the year 2012. I was sitting with my family on a holiday night having dinner when my husband turned on the news. The news flashed about a mass shooting taking place inside a movie theater in Aurora, Colorado. He turned the volume up and my stomach dropped hearing the newsreader. A mass shooting has occurred inside a Century 16 movie theater in Aurora, Colorado during a midnight screening of the film The Dark Knight Rises. Dressed in tactical clothing, a man named James Holmes set off tear gas grenades and shot into the audience with multiple firearms. 12 people were killed and 70 others were injured, 58 of them from gunfire. It's considered to be the deadliest shooting in Colorado since the Columbine High School massacre in 1999. Holmes was arrested minutes later in his car outside the cinema. After searching his house, the cops found homemade explosives and incendiary devices. These will be defused by the Arapahoe County Sheriff's Office bomb squad within the next 24 hours. Everyone reacted with misery, astonishment, and terror. Only I stayed silent throughout the night. I just couldn't tell anyone that I went on a date with a mass murderer in my college days. I kept my eyes on the news to watch the end of my former date as his trial proceeded. On May 27th, a court-appointed psychiatrist named Dr. William Reed interviewed Holmes for a total of 22 hours. Later, he testified that Holmes was mentally ill but legally sane. Dr. William Reed diagnosed Holmes as having a schizotypal personality disorder, which gave me closure on his deranged behavior that night. After a long trial and 12-hour deliberation on the day of the final verdict, the jurors found Holmes guilty on all 24 counts of first-degree murder, 140 counts of attempted first-degree murder, 1 count of possessing explosives, and a sentence enhancement of a crime of violence. Holmes was sentenced to 12 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole for murder charges, and in addition all 3,318 years for the attempted murder and explosive possession charges. I have a daughter, and whenever I imagine one day she'll begin her dating life, a cold shiver rushes down my spine. I pray to God that she doesn't make the same mistake her mother did. There's a reason the phrase stranger danger exists. I just can't look at her, Susan. God is so unfair sometimes. I know, Mom, but we have to be strong for Margie. Margie was sitting in a chair right beside the open casket where her deceased husband, Nassar, laid inside. Her tears have dried up. Her dreams were shattered now. She wanted to be a musician and a loving wife, but destiny had something else planned for her. It's an irony how she promised Nassar to spend her life with him, but only got 6 months. Not even in her wildest dreams did she see it coming. Nassar died in a sudden car crash, and here she was now, sitting beside his dead body, being his widow. Margie's sister Susie came to her and said, "Let's get something to eat. I'm not hungry. But you need to eat. You haven't eaten anything since last night. Come on." Susie held Margie's hand and took her to the house. She made her a sandwich and said, "Accidents are uncertain, Margie. That's why we call them accidents. But we can't stop living right. I know. You need to get back on your feet. We're still young, you know. I was thinking about working in Mother's tavern. Do you think she'll agree?" "Why not? It's better to indulge yourself in a jar than sing at home and gradually losing yourself to despair. Don't worry, I'll talk to her. In the next few days, Margie started her new job. The tavern was located on the outskirts of town. She would spend most of her day managing customers. There used to be a lot of drunk drivers, truckers, and bikers who regularly visited the tavern. One day, Margie was taking out the trash at the dumpster behind the tavern when she noticed a group of bikers standing at the side of the road laughing and smoking. All of them were heavily built men wearing leather jackets and pants. They had tattoos all over their body, and at first, their appearance looked no less than thugs and vagabonds. Margie noticed a man among these bikers. He had drunken eyes and wore a black turban on his head. The man was smoking when suddenly he looked at Margie and their eyes met. Margie felt a bolt of lightning rush into her veins as if she was electrocuted. The man smiled at her in an eerie way, and feeling awkward, Margie went inside the tavern. Sitting behind the bar, all she could think about was this mysterious biker who appeared scary yet charming at the same time. She was shocked that his bad boy persona kind of felt attractive to her. Moments later, the biker group entered the tavern and started drinking. But that particular biker was not among them. Feeling curious, Margie came out looking for him. Her eyes were searching for this mysterious stranger when she heard a rough, heavy voice behind her. Not every day I see a girl like you in a place like this. She turned back and saw him standing behind her with an expressionless face. I came here to stay with my mom and sister for a while. Good for me then. I'm Margaret. Jaeger. Randy Jaeger. My pals call me Mad Jaeger. Margie couldn't help but smile a little, and since that day, her life changed. She started seeing Jaeger every other day. He would pick her up from the tavern on his bike, and they would ride on a highway at full speed. Even though it scared her, the fact that she had nothing to lose in this life turned her fearless after this point. She liked Jaeger for his wild, ecstatic nature, but slowly started to realize how dangerous this guy could be. One evening, they were sitting near a lake amidst the woods. Jaeger went too close to Marjorie to kiss her, just when a wild coyote came from the bush and started barking at them. Margie ignored the coyote, but Jaeger got pissed. He picked up a rock and threw it at the coyote. The animal dodged the rock while barking in fear. Why did you do that? He wasn't doing any harm. You will understand once you give it a try. Here, go on. I don't know what happened, but Margie took the rock from Jaeger's hand and threw it at the coyote. Getting hit by the rock this time, the coyote finally squealed in pain and ran back into the woods. Did it feel good? I don't know. You'll get used to it. Life always hurts us, Margie, and sometimes we need to hurt it back so that we can feel free. Margie couldn't sleep that entire night after coming home that day. She could feel that what she did today was wrong, but still, she couldn't feel remorse. Is it because she was dead from the inside? After all, nothing matters in the end. Since that day, Margie neither cared for herself nor anyone else except Jaeger. Her mom and her sister were highly against her relationship with a hooligan biker who does nothing but terrorize the town with his gang, named the Outlaw. One day, Susie tried to talk Margie out of this relationship, but the way she behaved scared the entire family. You're just jealous because I'm not crying and sobbing like a normal widow. You want me to die in sadness and not live the way I want to. What are you saying? If you really want to start over, then choose someone who will be a good influence, not some fugitive who's always on the run. Why can't you see that, Margie? He's bad for you. Please try to understand. You've got a second chance at life. Don't just give it away like that. Shut up, you evil witch. Saying this, Margie left for work, and Susie broke down in tears. She could see her sister going through an impending doom, but she couldn't stop her. One morning, she knocked on Margie's room saying, "Get up, you're gonna be late for work." "Margie, are you all right?" "Margie." Guessing something wasn't right, Susie entered Margie's room, and to her shock, she saw the bedroom window wide open. Margie was gone, but her clothes and shoes and everything was still in the room. She even left her inhaler, which was odd because she suffered from asthma attacks. Mom, I can't find Margie. Call the cops." The sheriff came to Margie's house that evening and interrogated Susie and her mom about Jaeger. He said Margie's disappearance would be filed under a missing persons report. He also informed them that Jaeger is one of the most wanted criminals. There were possibilities that he kidnapped Margie, but at the same time, it's also possible that Margie went with him willingly. I must tell you that Randy is wanted for 6 counts of murder, racketeering, terrorism, and robbery. Oh my God, please help us, officer. We just want our Margie home soon. Margie's mom broke down into tears. "We will try our best." The sheriff left, and the cops left no stones unturned to track Jaeger. One thing they were certain about was that if they found Jaeger, they were going to find Margie too. It was a bright, sunny afternoon when 2 cops saw Jaeger in a bar in Rosarito Beach, Mexico. They immediately called for backup and captured Jaeger from the bar. 2 other cops spotted Margie sitting inside a worn-out car in the parking lot. One of them yelled at her, saying, "Margie, we've arrested Jaeger. You need to come with us." But before they could reach her, Margie panicked and pressed the accelerator so hard that the car took off, making a tire screeching noise. The chase began in the broad daylight. The cops repeatedly told Margie to stop her car, but she was desperate. She was driving recklessly, dodging cars, moving past anything that came in her way. But the chase ended in a big tragedy. Margie was near the railway crossing when she lost control of the car and hit a big oil truck at full speed. Margie's sister was called out to the station to identify her body. Susie collapsed on the ground crying her heart out when she saw her sister lying on a stretcher. Margie had a difficult life, which she didn't expect. The sudden trauma and heartbreak turned her into a completely different person, which made her careless for herself and her loved ones. She gave up too early and made all the wrong decisions, which pushed her into taking her own life for being reckless. Jaeger was indicted on charges of racketeering and conspiracy. He pleaded guilty in exchange for a 15-year term in federal prison. I don't know how to begin this story. The memory of this incident still haunts me, and I can't tell this without having tears in my eyes. My name's Claire, and I'm a country girl. Singing is my passion, and this passion takes me to places. The night this horrifying incident occurred in my life, I was returning home from a girls' night out in Nashville, Tennessee. I wasn't alone as I had my friend Linda to accompany me. We hired a cab using the popular app Lyft. After waiting for 5 minutes at the pickup location, the cab arrived. He was a tall, built, muscular guy. The app flashed his name as Albert. We got inside the cab and he started the trip. My friend Linda as the first drop-off as she lived close by. We started chatting when Linda said in a whispering voice, "What do you think those are, Claire?" She pointed under the front seat and I noticed a bottle of Jägermeister peeking from underneath. But there's no crime in keeping a bottle of alcohol under the seat of the car. Also, there was no smell of alcohol in the driver. We were sure that even though he has alcohol with him, he hasn't drunk it on duty. Maybe he's planning to drink it when he gets home. Yeah, everyone enjoys being tipsy, I guess. Stop it. I kept looking at the rearview mirror to see if the driver was being suspicious or staring at us, but he wasn't. His entire attention was on the road. He neither spoke nor flinched. He looked so calm that at one point I thought he wasn't even breathing. Linda and I kept chatting and cracking inside jokes. After 15 minutes, her stop arrived, and the driver spoke for the first time. First destination reached. He talked like a machine and pulled over the car at the sidewalk for Linda to get off. Even though the driver drove safely the entire way, I don't know why Linda just couldn't trust him. Before getting off, she said, why don't you stay the night at my place? You can leave tomorrow morning. Well, as tempting as it sounds, I gotta get home to my dog. The poor animal is probably hungry. Are you sure, Claire? Yeah. Go get some sleep. I'll call you once I get home. Okay then. Take care of yourself, okay? Good night, Linda. Good night, Claire. We waved at each other as the car began to leave. I turned on the Google map to see the way ahead, and I realized that there was huge traffic waiting for me on the highway. I wanted to get home early, as I was too tired, so I surfed the navigation screen and found another route. The route had a couple of extra kilometers to cover, but considering the amount of time I would get stuck in traffic, it seemed like a better option. Can you take the road to the outskirts to avoid the traffic? I asked Albert. For the first time, he looked at me, and our eyes met. Immediately, a cold shiver ran down my spine. His eyes were so big that I could feel his stare piercing my soul. He replied in that same robotic voice, but I don't know the route well. Also, my phone battery has died. No issues. I can guide you. It'll be easier and faster than the highway. Fine. The way he said fine sounded like I had somehow pissed him off, but I remained quiet and kept an eye on the navigation. We got onto a stranded road surrounded by deep woods. I rolled down the car window when the man unexpectedly yelled at me. Can you be nice to my car? Oh, what? I'm just rolling down the windows. I saw you putting pressure on the handle. If you damage my car, you will have to pay for it. Remember that. I'm not experiencing a car ride for the first time, mister. Shirk. Even though I said the last word in a very low voice, I saw him giving me a death stare from the rearview mirror. I was honestly confused to see his demeanor change like that. I just wanted to get out of the car as soon as possible. After driving for 10 minutes straight in dead silence, I noticed we had to take a left turn. You need to take the next left. The man didn't reply to me. Instead, increased the speed while breathing in anger. He was panting like an animal and making a growling noise while driving at full speed. Excuse me? What are you doing? Trying to get you out of the car. At least he's driving faster so the trip ends sooner. But surprisingly, when the left turn came, he missed it and took the right turn instead. The car went to a completely different road, and I felt my stomach drop. Hey, where are you going? I told you to take a left turn. Enough of your ranting, stupid blonde. Saying this, he stopped the car and got down from it. I was horrified because I knew something very bad was coming my way. He grabbed the back door and opened it in one go. He then screamed at me, "Get out, you witch! Get out of my car right now!" What? What are you saying? Drive me to my destination or else I'm gonna report you. I'm not frickin' driving you anymore. Get out. Please just listen to me. But he didn't wait for me to finish. He grabbed me by the hair and pulled me out of his car in full force. He was so strong that I could feel his Hulk hand tearing chunks of hair from my skull. I screamed and cried in pain. Please stop. He threw me into a nearby ditch and I face planted on the hard concrete. But his abuse didn't just stop right there. He laughed like a demon, seeing me writhing in pain. This is what you deserve for being a pain in the ass, witch. And just before turning away, he kicked me in the stomach. In my blurry vision, I saw this monster driving away in his car. Thankfully, I grabbed my phone when he pulled me out of his car. With trembling hands, I dialed 911 and called for help. I was in such acute physical pain until help arrived. I kept lying in that dirty ditch, waiting for the cops to rescue me. Authorities issued a warrant for the Lyft driver Albert the next day. I provided the cops with a photo of Albert from the Lyft app. He was arrested within 48 hours and later booked at Davidson County Jail. Though he was released on a $1,000 bail, I strictly made sure that Lyft eradicated him from the driver's list so he couldn't harm any other passenger the way he harmed me. It's been almost a year since I left my job as a Lyft driver. The reason behind it is one of the most bizarre incidents I've ever come across in my life. So this is how the story goes. I was heading to a pickup one Tuesday afternoon. It was the second ride of the day, and a man named George had booked it. The drop location was to a hospital, so I guessed it was a medical emergency. I reached the pickup spot as soon as possible. An older woman was seen standing on the sidewalk with a middle-aged man who identified to be George. The moment they saw my car approaching, this man started waving at me, spreading his arms wide in the air. His body language hinted that he was desperate for me to stop, which I was going to anyway. I stopped the car in front of them and said, "Please get in." The man and the older woman immediately jumped in the back of the car. "Take us to the hospital?" "Yes, ma'am." I started the ride and the man laid down in the older woman's lap and started to moan in pain. Ma'am, is everything all right? Just drive." The woman replied to me rudely, and I didn't talk any further. Though the man, George, had no physical injury on the outside, I could understand that he was going through some pain on the inside. I wanted to help the poor guy, so I drove as fast as I could. Suddenly, they struck up a conversation that began to creep me out. "Mom, do you still love me?" "Of course I do, Pumpkin. I told you she can't love you more than Mommy." "I know, but she was so beautiful. I just couldn't resist myself." "Shut up. She used her body to take you away from me. That mean, selfish witch." "Sorry. Please don't be mad at me for sleeping with her. You made the wrong decision, son. And now look at what it cost you. That's why a good son shouldn't love any other woman than his mommy." "I want to be your good son again. I will be. I promise. I want to believe you. But first, we need to get you to the doctor. The woman has done something to you when you were sleeping beside her. That's why you're having this pain now." "I don't want to die." "You won't die. Mommy will take care of you in the most way possible, okay?" Saying this, the woman kissed George on the forehead like he was a 9-year-old kid. I felt pretty weird by the entire scene. We got onto the busy highway. It was during that time of day when the traffic was at its worst. So having no other option, I waited in line just like every other car at that point. Suddenly, the man sat up and started screaming profanities at me. "Can you drive any slower, moron?" "Excuse me?" "Yeah, I'm talking to you, you stupid jerk. I need to get to the hospital right now." "Look, I understand you have an emergency, but there's nothing I can do. You're the one driving this effing car. Speed up, jackass." "Hey, you need to check your language. Don't talk to my son like that, you penniless freak. No doubt you're working like a slave." "Well, at least I'm earning my bread. Your big dumb son was crying in your lap. If anyone here is a freak, it's the two of you." "What did you call my mother?" "Freak. Exactly what you heard. If you don't behave, I'll throw you out of my car right now." As soon as I said this, the man grabbed me by the neck from the back seat and punched me in the head. "Ah! I will beat the hell out of you, you jerk." He went on punching and choking me while I was in the car. It was a huge chaos, shocking that his mom didn't even flinch while witnessing his rage. Rather, she laughed and said, That's my son. Teach this man a lesson. Beat him. Beat him. I tried my best to free myself from George's grasp, but when I couldn't, I pressed the brakes hard, and the car stopped, creating a loud screeching noise. I took my hands off the steering wheel and hit the psycho in his eye with my elbow. He screamed and let me go. Ah, he hit me. He hit me, Marv. I then got out of the car, opened the backseat door, and grabbed this dude by his collar. I screamed in his face. I am tolerant enough. I will make sure you visit the police station first before visiting the hospital. All the people on the road gathered to see our fight, and 2 policemen came to separate us. Once they did, they took us to the police station. Thankfully, I had the dash cam footage of what the man didn't say, which I immediately provided to the cops on behalf of my evidence. The cops realized it wasn't my fault at all. They made George pay me for an assault and battery, and then took us to the nearby hospital, where both of us received medical help. I was sitting on the bed holding an ice pack to the back of my head when I heard George and his mother one more time. I came out of the hospital cabin and saw the psycho mother and son duo surprisingly fighting with each other standing in the lobby. But you said you'd take care of me. What are you saying? I'm just an old woman. I can barely take care of myself. Go back to your stupid girlfriend with your infected body. She's the one who gave you this disease. There's nothing I can do. What? Bobby, why are you behaving like this? Look, George, I can't ruin my life for you. I've been your mother for the last 30 years. Now leave me alone, okay? What happened to you? Don't you remember? I'm a good son, Mommy. Oh my God. Someone get this freak off my back. You are not my kid anymore. You're a grown man. Learn to be on your own. Saying this, the woman started to walk out of the hospital, and George went to follow her. But the 2 cops standing at the gate stopped him and put handcuffs on him. One of them said, I think the asylum will be best for you, lad. No, she's lying. She's a witch. She ruined my life and she left me because of this disease. I hate you. I hate you, you witch. The cops started taking him away, and his angry cussing slowly changed into a pitiful sobbing. Mommy, please come back. They're taking me away. I don't want to go with them, please. I came to know that George was diagnosed with AIDS after being inspected by a doctor at the hospital. His cruel, selfish, equally sick mother left him, knowing about the disease. Suddenly, she didn't want him anymore because he got infected. It makes me nauseous whenever I recall that day in my memory. I don't know where George or his mother is now, but I just hope I never meet them again. Drive fast or freeze. Excuse me, man, if you're gonna be disrespectful, I'll just pull over right now. I've recently shifted into a new building to stay close to my work. In my building, there's a weird, middle-aged woman who always gives me the creeps. Her name is Maria Rodriguez, and she lives alone. The people in the building said her husband left her for some other woman. Whenever I come home from the office, I see her watching me enter the building from her window. My apartment is on the same floor, just 3 doors away from hers. So, there was a terrible feeling when I walked past her apartment, and she suddenly opened the door to make a forced conversation. It was as if she was waiting to catch me in the hallway. Hi, Nick. How was your day? Good. Thanks for asking, Mrs. Rodriguez. Oh, God. How many times do I have to tell you to call me Maria? And then she slammed the door in my face. This used to happen every twice or thrice a week. She would try to make a conversation, but I would end up pissing her off for not being interested. But I never cared much about this because I had worries of my own. So, one Sunday afternoon, I was chilling in my room when a notification popped up on my phone. opening it, I saw it was a follow request from Maria on Instagram. In her bio, she proclaimed herself as an Instagram model. There were 0 followers and no posts on her account, which made it clear that she had just joined Instagram. Feeling a little sad for her that she had no one to interact with or spend time with, I accepted her request. And that's the move I will regret forever. Since then, things started to get more disturbing. Every day, Maria would post pictures of herself on Instagram. She would dress up in an outlandish way, putting on a lot of makeup on her face, which only made her look ghastly. I don't know what she did with her lips, but they seemed like a horrible swollen ducks. But whatever she was doing it on our Instagram account, so it wasn't any of my business. I would just scroll up whenever her pictures appeared in my feed. I never made any comments or never liked any of her posts. A few days later, an office project arrived, for which I had to travel to New York with a proposal. When I got down at the airport and switched on my phone, I got bombarded with notifications on Instagram. They were all from Maria. She sent me her horrible modeling photos in the personal chat with even more horrible messages. Some of which was, "What do you think about my red stockings?" Or, "I need your opinion on what color suits me best." Hey, why aren't you replying to your favorite Instagram model? All of these texts surprised me because I could see how she was getting obsessed with me. But to keep in mind on the presentation, I ignored all of this. The meeting went better than I expected, and the New York office offered me to join them. I accepted their offer with great joy. I flew back 2 days later to pack my things and make New York my permanent address. The moment my cab stopped at the gate of the building, I looked at Maria's window and felt relieved not to see her standing there. I walked up the stairs and landed on my floor. I didn't want to make any conversation with her, so I tiptoed to my apartment. Once I got in, I felt relieved. I took a shower, ate some sandwiches, and got on to packing. I planned to catch the next flight tomorrow and get the hell out of this apartment as soon as possible. I was busy packing when I heard a knock on my door. It was Maria. She was standing outside my door with an expressionless face. Her wide eyes checked me out from top to bottom and said, "Where were you, Nick?" I was so worried, Nick. I was out. "Oh, I sent you so many texts. Did you get them?" "Yeah, I did, Mrs. Rodriguez. Call me Maria." I wasn't expecting her to scream like that all of a sudden, so it kind of took me by shock. Feeling insulted, I let my demons break loose. "Fine. What do you want, Maria?" "I'm very busy now." "Busy with what?" "It's none of your business." "Whoa. You can't be too busy for your favorite Instagram model. I mean, you follow me for a reason. I just don't get why you never like any of my pictures. I upload them only for you. Don't you think it's rude to leave someone on and then forget about them?" What? The shock of my life. I was pretty sure that I never let her on, and she was crazy to accuse me like that. "Look, the only reason I accepted your request was to get you off my back. Do you really think I have any interest in seeing and liking your ugly modeling photos? I have packing to do, so please leave." Her left eye twitched, and anger turned her eyeballs red. She bit her lips, and then said in a freaky voice, "You just came home. Why do you need to pack again?" I was totally taken aback by this question, because even after all that insult, she was still not going away. "Did you not just hear what I said? Are you doing this because I made you mad? Come on, I didn't mean any of that." Saying this, she grabbed my neck and came to kiss me. Seeing her swollen lips come to my face, I screamed in disgust and pushed her away. "Get away from me, you crazy..." I might have pushed her too hard as she fell on the floor, losing her balance. Her eyes were burning in hatred. She got up while breathing heavily and then spat on the floor, saying, "I can't believe I took all those pictures for a jerk like you. Burn in hell, Nick." And then she went to her apartment and slammed the door like she always does. I locked my door too and grabbed my phone to block Maria from my Instagram. As soon as I opened her profile, a creepy thing caught my eye. Her profile was in private mode, and she had only one follower, me. The fact that she only kept me in her followers and accepted no one else hinted at how hugely obsessed she had become with me. I called the landlord to turn over my keys and informed him that I will be leaving tomorrow. The next morning, when I was loading my luggage into the cab, I saw Maria standing near her window and watching me with a creepy stare. Since that day, she never tried to contact me, and her obsession suddenly stopped. I later found out why. A month after moving to New York, I realized that I had left an old few documents in my previous apartment, and I needed them for work. So I went back thinking I would have to see that wicked woman again. But as I knocked on my apartment, which had a new tenant by then, a man named Larry was living there now. As soon as Larry opened the door, I got goosebumps. On his couch sat Maria. She was making jokes and creepy comments, exactly how she did to me. I got in, picked up my stuff, and our eyes met, but she turned her face away from me. Her entire focus was on Larry now. On my way out, I heard her ask Larry, "Did you see the photos I uploaded last night?" And that was the last time I saw both Larry and Maria. After a month of living in New York, I got this horrible news while watching TV one night. A man named Larry Cullings was found murdered in his apartment. His throat was slit with his own kitchen knife. The cops investigated the matter thoroughly and identified Maria as his killer. When they arrested her and took her into custody, all she did was giggle in joy, like she has done what she felt was right. The woman was a psychopath from the very beginning. It just makes me sad and a little guilty that I didn't warn Larry about her that day. But also, I had no idea what was set on a killing spree, crossing the limits of her obsession. I'll never forget what happened 2 winters ago. I was heavy into the Instagram scene and followed a mess of hotties. They were stunning, funny, smart, and had so many followers they may as well have been famous. My favorites were Mia and Lillian, a popular duo who would post pictures daily. Mia was a stereotypical blonde with brown eyes and a flawless, symmetrical face. She had a tan, her hair was sun-kissed, and it always seemed to be flowing whimsically. Her makeup was always trendy and on point. Lillian was the complete opposite, but they meshed together well. Her skin was milky, her eyes were a pale blue, and her hair was long and jet black. She was soft-spoken and sweet, yet mysterious, while her partner in crime was the loud, bubbly one. Her style was dark, and she didn't need much makeup to look striking. She was a natural beauty. I loved scrolling through their posts, getting lost in their world while I was bored or at work. I'd find myself envying the glamorous house they shared, the adorable dogs they owned, and their oh-so-hunkus boyfriends, who definitely weren't camera shy. Everything was so good, almost too good, and I often wondered if they were fake. Their lives were perfect. I'm still shaken by the events that took place years ago. It was a week after Thanksgiving, and I was dreading Christmas. I was procrastinating on decorating, shopping, just everything merry and bright. I'd lie in bed late at night and stare at Mia and Lillian as they joyously decked their halls with tons of lights, flirtatiously posed with candy canes and Santa hats, and uploaded little video clips of them singing along to the typical holiday songs. As much as I loved them, it was pretty nauseating to watch. One night, however, they uploaded something a little different. I had just gotten home and was settling down on the couch. I opened Instagram and there was a new post. Mia and Lillian were sitting next to each other, but they weren't smiling. In fact, they looked like they had been crying. Their eyeliner was smeared down their cheeks, and their eyes were wide and full of fear. They were holding a sign on their laps that read, "It's time to spice things up. Are you ready?" It was so out of character for them. I was quick to scroll through the comments, curious to see what others thought of this display. What the weird? Hope you girls are okay. Is this a prank? What's going on? Bad day? You guys aren't funny. Your sadness is sexy. Stop being lame. Maybe their boyfriends are going to expose them. Can you imagine? Drama queens. They went on and on, ranging from worry to odd ramblings. Everyone was trying to solve the mystery. A few days passed with no activity on their account. I'd check in every night to read all the comments on that last picture. They were mostly the same. It was getting boring. The weekend hit and I was swamped. I'd found a new project that was making my holiday season a little more bearable, and even though it robbed me of my sleep, I loved it. But by Sunday night, I was drained and needed to head home. When it was time for bed, I got cozy and went to view my favorite girls. There was a mess of new updates, all coming from their profile. My hands went cold. The pictures were so detailed, so vivid, and so brutal that they took my breath away. The filters really made the colors pop, though they probably would have popped either way. The first photo was of Mia, pouting at the camera with a pleading expression. Her face was wet from tears. I tilted my head to the side and traced a thumb over the image. If only I could swipe her pain away. Lillian was in the next photo. She was standing there in a lovely Mrs. Claus bikini. Her porcelain skin was trickling blood from her head down to her feet. There were hundreds, maybe even thousands of staples all over her body. A staple gun was neatly placed next to her feet, and her mouth was open in a way that looked like she was screaming. Her fists were clenched, and a small pool of blood was drenching her toes. The next upload was a video with no sound. They were tied together with a rope so tight that it was rubbing and tearing their skin as they struggled. I winced, imagining how painful it must have been for Lillian as the staples ripped her flesh. My eyes were glued to the screen. The pictures that followed only got worse. Knife slashes now covered Mia's legs, so deep and open that you could see the bone exposed as she curled up into a ball onto the floor. Parts of Lillian's skin had been shaved off, from the tops of her fingers to her elbows. Cartilage protruded and blood gushed in HD quality. My ears buzzed from the deafening silence in the room, or perhaps my own blood rushing to my head as I continued to fixate on every little detail of the gory photos. When I reached the last photo, I could tell it was the finale. The bodies were sprawled in the snow. Blood was everywhere. Two poorly built snowmen were next to them. The heads were not snow heads, but rather the heads of the girls who had been severed from their bodies. It was disgusting, cruel, and beautiful. It was artistic, as gruesome as it may have been. My eyes darted all over the screen. It was so much to take in. I breathed heavily as sweat dripped down my temples. I'm pretty sure I was having an anxiety attack as my vision clouded and sirens sounded in the distance, getting louder by the second. I looked over to the pile of clothes I'd left on the floor. It was then I realized I had didn't chance. I didn't plan it out thoroughly. I was driven by passion, and it felt so right at the time. Aside from Blink-182, who really thinks about the small things anyway? I probably should have thrown those clothes in the fireplace. I sunk down further in my bed and clenched my phone as I heard my front door being busted down. I closed my eyes and started to hum. I'll never forget how rough those officers were as they pulled me from my comfy spot and slammed me to the floor. It was really rude of them. The cuffs were too tight, and one of the guys shouting at me had bad breath. I saw them grab my bloody clothes and toss them in a bag with my phone. I asked them to be careful with it, since I'd only just gotten it a few weeks ago, but they ignored me. These guys weren't fair at all. My stay in jail was not short, but one I'll remember forever. Everything smelled like vomit, and the food was flavorless. I was relieved when they took me to the asylum. It was comforting to be back in a bed, even if the room wasn't pretty. That night will forever haunt me. I don't think I deserved that treatment. I could have been heartless and left them for dead and gone, with nothing for anyone to remember them by. But I created a masterpiece. I deserved a medal for putting those jolly do-gooders out of their misery. But no one even knows my freaking name. All my hard work on that project was deleted. And the kicker, I never got to read the new comments. The story I wish to share with you today isn't your typical story that you will hear on this channel. Stories on this channel often regale us with situations of stalkers and other horrors, of how the victims in these stories nearly made it out alive. What we never hear, though, is the stalker's side of the story. If you were to append an element of horror to my story, it would be that of a ruined reputation caused by exaggerated harms from a supposed victim. Being falsely accused of something should scare anybody, but we never stop to consider that there are two sides to every situation. Now, don't get me wrong. I think stalking is wrong. I think every person has the right to feel safe and unannoyed. I also feel that if a person is accused of something, they have a right to defend his or her actions. You may think, why don't you just get a lawyer and fight it? Well, it's just not that simple. Lawyers are expensive, public defenders are overworked, and also, many states have broad stalking laws, where even if you send somebody polite messages, they can interpret that as stalking. My nightmare begins in 2019. As a little preface, I have a very visible disability. Meeting women is hard for me. Despite my challenges, I still put myself out there, and I try to talk with people online and in person. I can't quite tell you how I came across her, but this girl, whom I will call Brooke, was on my people that I may know list on Instagram. Although I didn't know her, I wanted to. I sent her some polite messages, and she emailed me back, and thus we began our friendship. Soon our messages evolved into texting. She would tell me things about her, and I would tell her things about me. I honestly thought that we would start dating at some point, and this would be my first real relationship. Out of nowhere, she dropped a bombshell on me as she was starting to see another guy. I was crushed. I couldn't believe it, but I remained cool, and I figured that being her friend was the next best thing. As time went on, her boyfriend became very hostile towards me, and they even broke up a few times. It was a mess. One day, through our messages, she relayed to me her struggles with mental health. She asked me if I ever thought of dying, and also told me about her past history with drug abuse. She also said that she kept having nightmares of an invisible man chasing her. I was honestly pretty spooked. But since I've dealt with issues of my own, I wasn't going to abandon her. I would be a hypocrite if I did that. We soon set in motion a plan of meeting up for her birthday. That's how close we were. But just like every good thing in life, it must come to an end. Nothing lasts forever. Brooke texted me one day and said very matter-of-factly, "The Holy Ghost doesn't give me good feelings about you." I was confused. Any normal person would have just ended it there, as that text would probably be a major red flag to anyone. But I have to admit that I was desperate. My pleas of trying to work it out with her didn't sway her, and she proceeded to block me. I'm ashamed to admit it, but I have mental problems of my own, and I guess her blocking me caused me to have a breakdown. I tried emailing her, explaining how hurt I was, but she didn't reply. I was devastated. I would stay up at night hoping that she would respond, but she never did. I know at this point in the story I probably sound like an obsessed loser, but I still feel that my actions were not that of a stalker, because I never threatened her, nor did I do anything that would cause fear. I was simply trying to work out a problem. Isn't that what people who are in friendships are supposed to do? Also, with my disability, making connections is hard, so I was trying my best to hold on to what I felt was a valuable connection in my life, and she never explicitly told me to stop. Now, I must be clear, I wasn't messaging her every day. At most, I messaged her every other week. Suddenly, after 3 months, Brooke finally said something. Instead of telling me what happened or what was wrong, she flatly said to stop. I was so confused. All I wanted was an explanation. I wanted to know where things went wrong. After a few polite messages of questioning her, trying to uncover some answers, I finally got the hint, and I left her alone. I sat by myself and pondered the future. It was time for me to move on. I had gotten the response I wanted, and she told me to stop, and I had to respect that. Unfortunately, that's not how things played out. Before I knew it, I had officers at my doorstep serving me with a criminal summons for the misdemeanor of stalking. I was absolutely floored. The sending messages, trying to work something out, is now cyber stalking. I couldn't believe it. I immediately got an attorney and scoured through all of my email communications to her and gave them to my lawyer. He looked over the evidence and couldn't believe that I was being charged with stalking. In the months that followed, hearings were held over Zoom. Brooke gave a brief testimony and twisted the events of what actually happened. I tried sharing my version of events, but the judge simply would not listen. Every day felt like a haze. I had never been in trouble in my life before. Trolls that harassed me online began to spread the rumor that I was a stalker. They would send me emails and taunt me for my current predicament. I was the one being harassed. Slowly, my confidence died. I didn't know if I would ever be able to talk to anyone again, if I would even say hi to another girl. Would she turn around and lie and say that I was stalking her too? The prosecutor briefly considered dropping the charge, but was informed that I partake in vices that are legal in another state, and that changed his mind. He claimed that partaking in that recreation, even if it was legal, gave him an insight into my character. This nightmare just kept getting worse and worse. Now my personal life was being used against me. What was he going to do next? Use my eating habits against me too? As the situation spiraled out of control, I had to make a hard choice, and I ended up pleading guilty to the misdemeanor charge. People automatically think that if someone pleads guilty, then they really must be. I think people who have that perspective have never actually been in a situation like I was. When you're up against the state, it's really hard to do anything other than plead guilty. They essentially have you in a chokehold and place your feet against the fire. I felt dirty pleading guilty because I knew I was innocent, but I felt that it was the only way that I would ever be able to move on with my life. 2 years have passed since this incident. I know that throughout the story it may seem like I was deflecting blame. I 100% admit that I was annoying at most. But I disagree that my actions were criminal, though. Just imagine if we charged every single person on Facebook who messaged another person multiple times or did other annoying conduct. Our jails would be overbooked, more so than they already are now. I'm not going to share where this took place, but I will say that it took place in a city whose population is about 100,000. They have a large roster of people being charged. I think they do this on purpose and make it a game of ruining people's lives because the police and city attorneys have quotas they have to meet. As I said at the beginning, this wasn't your typical story. This story is scary in another way. Any one of us could be charged at any moment, and our lives turned upside down, and our reputations ruined forever, all based on lies. Never once did a police officer or a city official reach out to me and ask for my side of the story. They decided just to charge me because they didn't like me. It's absolutely frightening to think about how many people are in prison for alleged crimes based on exaggerated claims. Next time you hear a story of someone being accused of something, I strongly advise you to stop and perhaps consider their side of the story as well, before you start judging them. I was headed home from a friend's house after a heavy night of drinking. It was being pretty risky to drive, so I thought I'd stop somewhere and sober up. I found a Little Caesars outlet standing alone on the side of the road. A 2-lane highway ran right in front of it. No other stores were nearby, just scattered trees and abandoned buildings. This Little Caesar sat all on its own, like a pizzeria in the woods. The parking lot had only a handful of cars. Most of the restaurant's lights were turned off inside. I guess I should have turned around right then and there, but I was a stubborn drunk, not to mention a hungry one. Keeping my cool, I stopped at the drive-thru window and faced it. Like a lowered curtain, darkness hid the inside of the store. I couldn't see shit. Instead, I just sat there and waited and waited. The chorus of frogs and crickets accompanied by a hooting owl were about the only things I heard that noiseless night. I honked the car horn twice to let staff know that they had a customer. Finally, the window slid open. A pair of cold gray eyes surfaced from the darkness, followed by a rugged, not-so-pleasant face. The man was wearing a wrinkled Little Caesar shirt that went well from the fine lines on his face. I smiled awkwardly and said, hey, I just want a large pepperoni. With an emotionless expression, the man looked behind my car. A weird smile appeared on his face when he saw that there was no one else in the car, just me and him. With a slight discomfort, I asked him, are y'all open? I asked. With a sloppy quickness, the man replied, yes, but I'll be a minute. Forcing a smile, I fumbled for my wallet. Do you want me to go ahead and pay? I didn't wait for his reply and raised a $10 bill at him. Like a paranoid drug dealer, the man snatched the money from my hand. The way he was behaving frowned my eyebrows and worried. He then said, just wait right here. I'll be back. And don't move. Before I could utter a word, he disappeared inside the pitch-black kitchen. The windows slammed shut, making a creaking sound. I sat alone in the dark. The wait was long, and I knew there was no excuses for it. Not at Little Caesars. Each passing second further escalated my dread. My gaze drifted over to the highway. The escape from the drive-through hell now looked more and more like a mirage. Then, the window burst open. I turned to see the man holding a large pizza box towards me. Here you go, he said. His hushed voice felt far from friendly. far from the fake joy most fast food workers were forced to employ. I grabbed hold of the pizza saying, "All right, thanks." But the man wouldn't let go. His long fingernails clasped the other side of the box, holding on for dear life. Then with a sick smile, he asked in a very creepy way, "You sure you don't want anything else?" No, I'm fine." I pulled the box from his hands in one go and threw it in the passenger seat. "All set to put the car in drive and get the hell out of that place." "Wait," I heard the man say. "You forgot your change." Placing my hands on the wheel, I faced his paranoid gaze. "Just wait right there, and I'll get it." "Don't worry about it. Just keep that shit," I shouted. Angry, the man reached towards me. His hands were like bear claws clamoring for my flesh. "No," he cried in desperation. I hightailed it out of there, straight for the highway. A brief stop at the exit almost caused my pizza to spill to the floor. And then I heard it. 2 brutal gunshots, 2 painful screams. My heart went hollow. Fear latched itself deep under my skin. Another scream landed like a sucker punch into my skull. A pitiful scream that was nothing more than a dying cry for help. The next gunshot was even more ominous than the Little Caesar's funeral bell. Sirens blared to the night. I then saw a pack of howling squad cars swerve into the parking lot right before my terrified eyes. I turned to see several cops rush towards Little Caesar's, all of them with guns at the ready. Helpless, I looked over at the pizza. Amidst the soundtrack of bullets and bloodshed, I flipped open the box, and what I saw made me vomit right away. There was no pizza in the box. Instead, lay the rotten remains of what seemed like a dead rat. The man never worked at Little Caesar's. He and his buddy came to rob the drive-thru and killed the 2 employees who were working the graveyard shift at the outlet that night. I couldn't just drive away from the crime scene. Once the cops took control of the situation, they noticed my car parked near the entrance. One of them came to me and asked, "Are you okay, sir?" With a terrified face, I replied, I don't know." "Well, you're lucky to survive these 2. They were on our wanted list for the last 7 months." "How did you—" "Luckily, one of our patrolling officers saw these 2 enter this drive-thru a couple minutes earlier. Sadly, 2 more people had to lose their lives for these criminals to get arrested." Finally, I saw the 2 men handcuffed and guarded by the cops coming out of Little Caesar's. One of them pretended to be an employee, and the other looked no less harmful than his partner. They were screaming and cursing at the cops. "Leave us. No bars in prison are strong enough to hold Kurt and Dave. We are the murderous duos. We'll break free." "Yeah, you tell him." "You tell him, Kurt. Don't be so relieved thinking you have this problem solved. There are plenty of us roaming in this world, and we're not afraid to taste the power of their guns." "Hey, get in the car, you freak." 2 cops shoved him in the back seat of the cop car, and I watched them drive away. The words that Kurt said that night still ring in my ear. There are people in this world who can go to any extent to hurt other human beings. They are worse than any animal on this planet, and I hope you never come across them, because not everyone gets lucky these days. I remember the day our town took down the last single-screen movie theater. I was standing there and watching that cursed place going down like an old, tired, broken man. Even if the place is gone, the horrifying memory it gave me remains fresh in my mind. I was 12 years old and went to see Child's Play with my brother and his girlfriend. The movie was a rerun, and by the time we went to watch it, everyone in our town had already seen it. So, the crowd was gone, and a handful of true horror fans went to watch it again. We were late to the party, so we went with great enthusiasm. The cult classic featuring a cursed doll, Chucky, kind of became an overnight sensation. I was never a fan of horror movies, but because of my brother and his girlfriend, Amy, I had to go with them. I was standing at the ticket counter when Amy got us tickets. My brother Dan was buying popcorn, so he didn't notice what I did. There were very few people on the street that night, and it was a late-night show. I noticed a figure standing in the dark under a big bushy tree on the opposite side of the movie theater. I couldn't tell who it was, but I surely felt his eyes on us. Even though I couldn't see the person standing in the dark, I saw a shiny object in his hand. Before I could guess what it was, I heard my brother yelling at me, "Yo, Kevin, let's go, man. Did you see someone there?" "Who?" I pointed to the tree on the opposite side of the road, and my brother kept staring at it for a few seconds, and then said, "Is this your attempt to scare us before a horror movie?" Crow up, Kevin. "No, I just thought I saw someone watching us." "Come on, kiddo. The movie's about to start." Dan and Amy walked ahead, and I followed them, thinking it was probably my mind playing tricks on me. We took our seats in the middle row. Apart from us, 7 to 10 people were sitting on the single screen scattered throughout. The movie began, and our eyes got hooked on the screen. I was lost in the movie when I again felt someone was watching me. I turned my head to my left, and after 4 to 5 seats, I saw a man. The man was sitting in the same row and was looking at me. He wasn't like a normal stranger because his appearance was one of a kind. He was dressed like Chucky. His look was so accurate that if Chucky was a human character instead of a doll, I have no doubt it would look exactly like him. He had scars and stitched wounds painted on his face just like the doll. As our eyes met, his blue, glassy eyes got wider, and he smiled ear to ear. His yellow, uneven teeth gave me goosebumps. My brother was sitting in the middle and was watching the movie, not knowing the existence of this man. I wanted to tell him, but I was numb with an unknown fear. The guy was so creepy, and he didn't look sane-minded. After checking me out with the creepy grin and blinkless stare, he suddenly lifted his other hand, and I saw a sharp, shiny knife. Sweat appeared on my forehead as I recalled the person in the dark whom I saw outside the movie theater. The guy started making stabbing and slashing gestures with his knife while laughing at me silently. I quickly turned to my brother and said, "Look, there he is. That was the guy I was talking about." But as I looked back to point the guy to my brother, there was no one in that row. My brother looked at me with an irritated face and said, "What the hell is your problem? Just watch the movie, there's no one there." "But I swear I saw a man dressed like Chucky sitting in that seat." "Can you two please be quiet?" Amy scolded us for talking too much, and I had no other option than to shut up. Time went by and the interval fell. Dan was eating like a walrus, so we felt the urge to pee. "I'm gonna go to the washroom. You guys want more popcorn?" "No, just a soda for me." "Gavin, what about you? You want something?" I was searching the movie hall for the man as soon as the light hit, so I didn't hear Dan the first time. "Gavin? Yeah? Do you want something to eat?" No. No thanks." Whatever." Dan went out, and I kept thinking, where did that guy go? There's no way I imagined a man dressed like Chucky sitting in our row and pulling creepy stabbing gestures. I'm not insane. But no matter how much my eyes searched the theater, I didn't see any sign of him. 5 minutes went by. The second part of the movie began, but Dan still hadn't come back. What's taking him so long? Probably went to smoke. Oh wait, Dan smokes? Aw, poor Kevin. Are you heartbroken that your big brother is a smoker? Shut up, Amy. Maybe we should go look for him. Relax. You're the 12-year-old, not him. He'll be back. Let's just watch the movie. I want to see how they finally get rid of this evil doll. Amy's eyes went back to the screen, but I couldn't help but feel weird. Dan wanted to watch this movie more than any of us. It didn't make sense that he was missing the main part, but I couldn't wait anymore. I got up and said, I'm gonna go look for Dan. Are you coming? Oh my God. I told Dan not to bring a kid, no matter how unwilling she was. Amy got up and we came out of the movie hall. The washroom was at the end of the spooky, dimly lit corridor. As we walked, we could hear our footsteps. This place is creeping me out. Let's just find Dan and go home. Ah, wasn't it Dan? Amy and I exchanged a terrified look, and we ran to the washroom at full speed. I pushed the door open and we saw Dan lying on the floor unconscious. The man dressed as Chucky was sitting beside him. He was leaning on Dan's face and doing something. A sloppy sound of cutting flesh could be heard. What are you doing? I said, and the man turned back at us holding a sharp knife in one hand. A knife had drops of blood on it. Your brother wanted to be like me, so I tried to give him a makeover. He moved away and we saw Dan passed out. His face had several cuts and he was bleeding, but wasn't dead, just passed out from the terrible shock. Amy started screaming and ran to the movie theater to get help.
Help us, someone please.
Whereas I stood there. The man didn't try to run away. He just stood there looking directly into my eyes. What's your name? Kevin. Hi, I'm Chucky, your friend to the end. Are you crazy? You can never be my friend. Amy is going to call the cops and you'll be behind bars. I've got a new game we can play. It's called Hide the Soul. Trust me, you'll love it. He gave a big smile and I heard footsteps rushing towards the washroom. 4 to 5 people came for help and they saw the man standing at some distance holding a knife. They jumped on him and grabbed him tightly. He didn't protest or try to break himself free. The cops came and arrested him for hurting my brother. Dan was taken to the hospital and Amy accompanied him. I was standing with the cops waiting for my dad to pick me up. 2 other cops were taking that man away when one last time he turned towards me and said,
I was broken, Kevin. I couldn't make you smile,
but I'm better now. I know how to make you happy now. Maybe you don't want to be happy. Maybe you're broken too. The cops took him away, and I just stood there terrified and cursed for my entire life. I just hope I never meet that man again. It all started when we got our 4-year-old son a Chucky doll for his birthday. We were coming home from my parents' house when I saw a house on the left putting up a yard sale. My husband and I got down with Joshua just to check it out. I had a knack for old furniture and home decors. We started looking at the tables and boxes full of clothes, toys, kitchen appliances, and so many more things once used by some other family. I was checking out this beautiful blue gown when I heard my son, Joshua, yell in excitement. Mommy, Mommy, it's that doll from the movie. I followed his eyes and saw an old Chucky doll from the movie Child's Play. It was put up on a table for sale. The doll's orange hair appeared stringy and pointy due to the dirt that was filled in them. It had a worn-out face and very bright blue eyes, too bright and shiny to pair with the dirty doll. My husband asked Joshua, "Do you want it?" "Yes, Daddy, please." "Oh, okay. Seeing my husband taking out his wallet to buy that doll, I asked him whether it would be right to buy such a creepy, worn-out doll, which was based on a horror movie. He laughed and said, "Don't worry, this Chucky is not going to be coming alive." We brought the doll home. Joshua was really excited. All he wanted to do was play with the doll the entire day. But before I let him play with the doll, I made sure that I washed it. I went to the bathroom, clogged the sink with water, soaked the doll well, and started rinsing it thoroughly. A strange thing happened when I rinsed it. Even though the doll had no such dark patches on its clothes, black, muddy water started releasing from them. God, what did we bring home? I said in disgust. After 2 to 3 washes, the doll finally started to look clean. Joshua was so happy when I gave the doll to him. He immediately took it to his room and started playing. 2 days went by, and Joshua would take Chucky everywhere he went. One time, I was working in the kitchen, and Joshua was playing in the backyard. I could keep an eye on him from the kitchen window. I heard Joshua talking to the doll. "Really? Was that house bigger than ours?" I got a little startled by this question, so I asked, "Joshua, what house are you talking about?" "The house where Chucky used to live before Mommy." A frown appeared on my face, and I didn't say anything anymore. I brushed it off as child's imagination. That night, we sat for dinner when Joshua brought Chucky to the table and placed it beside him. "Can I have a plate for Chucky?" Okay. As I put a plate in front of him to make Joshua happy, I put some salad and a little piece of beefsteak. "Ooh, he won't eat the salads." "What? Why?" "Chucky only wants meat." My husband and I looked at each other with creeped out faces. My husband said, "Buddy needs to eat the salad, just like you, to get the ice cream later." Joshua smiled and started eating his food. I went to tuck him into bed that night. He was sleeping, hugging the crazy doll. I said, are you sure you want to share your bed with Chucky?" "I have to, or he'll get lonely again, and things will get worse." "Why would things get worse?" "Chucky doesn't like to be alone. If I leave him alone, he'll get angry and do all the bad things he did to Kristen." "Who is Christian, Joshua?" "The girl who Chucky lived with before." "And what happened to her?" "She died." "Well, oh. Joshua, who told you this?" Joshua didn't answer any further. He just looked at Chucky and then turned to the other side saying, "Good night, Mommy." As freaked out as I was after having the bedtime conversation with Joshua, I still kept it in, because I knew my husband would probably mock me if I shared all of this with him. So I decided to look for the previous owner of this doll. I went the next day to the same yard sale. The old man who sold us the doll was sitting on the same chair with the stuff that hadn't been sold out yet. "Hey, that doll that we bought from you yesterday, do you know about its previous owner?" "Why?" "I'm just being curious." "Yeah, it belonged to my previous tenants who lived in this house. The doll belonged to their daughter, Kristen." "Ooh, what happened to her?" "Ooh, she died in an accident." "Oh my God, how?" "It said she accidentally stabbed herself with a knife. The owners left everything in the house the very next day of the girl's funeral." I came home with a terrifying face. Entering, I saw my husband passed out on the couch. Joshua. I called out for my son, but he was nowhere to be seen. I slowly walked upstairs to his room. As I pushed the door open, I saw Joshua sitting on the floor, looking at his big toe bleeding. His face was struck with fear, but he wasn't crying. "What? Joshua, what happened? What did you do?" I grabbed his toe and started screaming. Drops of blood were scattering on the floor. My husband came rushing after hearing my scream. I asked Joshua what happened to his toe, and he replied with a creepy smirk. "I ripped off my toenail with Daddy's clippers." "Joshua, why?" Chucky said that I was able to see my skeleton under my toenail. I looked at my husband, and we were both shocked to hear the words coming out of the mouth of our 4-year-old. I took care of his wound, and we all sat down to eat. Joshua looked at me with wide eyes and said, "Where's Chucky's plate?" I was highly pissed off at this point at the doll, at Joshua's scary behavior, and I realized that it was time to put an end to this nonsense. "Finish your dinner. You have to wake up early for school tomorrow." "Why won't you give food to Chucky?" "Chucky is a doll. He can't eat." Stop this nonsense and finish your dinner. Joshua's face turned red, and a scary grin appeared on his face. He said, "If you keep him hungry, he'll walk around the house the whole night." Okay, that's it. Enough with this. I got up furiously and took a knife from the kitchen table. Then, I grabbed the doll and sliced its stomach, disfiguring it forever. As soon as I did, Joshua came running at me screaming. He bit me on my hand so deep that blood came out. My husband had to pull him away from me. My own son was screaming violently, kicking his hands and feet in the air, throwing in outrage. "I want Chucky. I want Chucky. Put him back now." My husband took him upstairs and threw the doll in the dumpster outside. Joshua cried himself to sleep that night, but I was decisive about the doll staying away from my son forever. We went to bed around 2 in the morning after Joshua fell asleep. I was so tired that I immediately passed out. I don't remember the exact time, but I woke up hearing creepy laughter next to my bed. "Wake up, Mommy. Wake up. It's time." I slowly opened my eyes and saw Joshua standing near the bed, holding the disfigured Chucky doll that I threw away. But before I could get the hang of the entire situation, Joshua pulled out a knife from his back and said, "It's time for you to go to heaven, Mommy. Daddy will meet you there tomorrow." "Ready, Mommy? Here I come." Saying this, he raised the knife at me and came to stab me. Screaming in fear, I moved away to my husband's side, and the knife hit my pillow. It cut so deep that feathers came out. My husband woke up, and the both of us lunged at Joshua to take the knife away from him. Joshua again started kicking and screaming. He pulled my hair, scratched my husband on the face. It was a horrible sight at my son that I saw that night. After putting Joshua to bed somehow, we immediately burnt the doll in the basement. The next day, we took Joshua to a child psychologist, and for an entire month, he attended the mental health sessions. Joshua is 11 years old now, studying in middle school. Surprisingly, he doesn't remember anything about the Chucky doll, or everything that he did.